Welcome to Best in Faction.
The next generation.
A podcast where we gobble up the entire 40k meta with Tyranids.
My name is Tyler.
I'm Nick.
And I'm Lucas.
And today we are joined by a very special guest who requires absolutely no introduction if you've been paying attention to this podcast for any stretch of time. It's 2021's Best in Faction Forces of the Hivemind 2022 LVO finisher number 4. We've got ourselves the one and only patriarch himself, Mr. Alex Macdougall. How are you doing, Alex?
I'm doing great.
Awesome. Well, today we are here to talk all about some of these brand new bugs. They've been leaked wholesale. We have the entire codex in front of us. We don't even know when it's going up for pre-order, someday in the future, and we'll be back at that point later with more stuff, more formal reviews. But this is going to be a whole bunch of hot takes and a whole bunch of excitement. So if you play bugs, if you play against bugs, if you care at all about Warhammer 40k, you're going to love what we've got going on. But before we jump into any of that, I want to check in with my other co-hosts who do not play quite as much Tyranids as I do and make sure they're not feeling entirely left out. How you doing, Nick? What's going on with you these days?
I'm doing well. I've been practicing Necrons a little bit, but more importantly, I have been trying out some Harlequins. I picked up a Harlequins army a few weeks before the Eldar book came out, and I decided to give Dark a little spin, and it has been super fun for me. Not for anyone I played against, but for me. Yeah, Lucas and I have been doing some testing. I played into his Orc list. That was actually my closest game. I was just worried about like his forward pressure and stuff. And then we tested it out into Custodes, and that game was very surprising. He threw his entire army in the middle. I answered with my entire army, and I won the trade. And I want to keep testing it out because I know a lot of people are talking about them, but now that I've actually tried it myself, I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of power here. So
very exciting. Do you think you may be jumping ship, or are you gonna give your precious Necrons another couple shakes?
I have a GT here in a few weeks, like April 9th. I don't think I'll have the Harlequins ready in time, so I'm just gonna bring my Necrons to that. And depending on how that goes, for the GW Open, the next big tournament in May, I might bring Harlequins instead. So we'll see.
Good stuff. All right, how about you, Lucas? What's going on in your side of the room?
I am still playing orcs with all my battle wagons and meganobs and stuff. Having not the best success. I did beat Tal yesterday by 2 points. All that required was my opponent to play like an ape, and
isn't that all Tau players?
And then I won by 2 points. So there we go. You know what? I'll take a win when I can get one. Mm-hmm. I'm like 3-15 in the last month, guys. You know what? I'll take a win where I can get it. So yeah. Yeah, what's been going well in the list? I mean, everything in the list feels amazing. Like everything has its role. It's missing some stuff. This is the only time I've ever had to play an army where I don't have a ton of OBSEC. I don't have any OBSEC in this list whatsoever. So I'm just trying to like bash people off of objectives, and if they have a 5-man unit somewhere, I'm like, well, okay, well that's 10 points I won't be able to get ever. So yeah, it's definitely learning a new skill set. I also have never really played with big clunky models before, so learning about like movement ordering and stuff when you're moving a castle, just to not block yourself and make sure all the auras stay on everybody. That's also a skill that takes a fair amount of, a thing to do that takes a fair amount of skill, and I'm learning that. And what I want to start doing is putting my army out and then like kind of mock moving through the first couple turns so I can maintain all the auras and stuff, because there's like a very set order that things need to move, and when you do it incorrectly, things fall apart really quickly. Because there's a bunch of 3-inch auras off of Makari, and he's on a 25mm base. Horrible. Because like he only gives the feel no pain if he's within 3 of Gaz, and Gaz is a monster who moves slower than everybody else. But Gaz also moves last, so I don't know where he's gonna end up. So it's like, this is just horrible. So I need to practice that for sure. But overall, things are going pretty well. I'm feeling okay. And yeah, just eager to play more 40k in the next couple weeks. I'm also going to the same GT, and I'll probably just bring this list because I'm fairly experienced with it now.
Good stuff. For context on why that win rate of 3-15 is so bonkers to some of us, Lucas, just before the Orc Codex, you went like 45-2 in tournaments? Is that what your total record was?
Sons and Guns?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Something like 45-2. So Lucas falling down to a really bad record makes me very concerned about the state of the meta, or at least the state of orcs. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway,
And then at GT plus events since the Orc Codex, aren't I like 15-0 or 16-0?
if you don't count the shadow round, yeah.
Yeah.
You lost. Oh, at GT plus events. Never
Yeah.
mind.
I lost that RTT to you.
Anyway, yeah. So glad to hear that y'all are doing well. We got a lot of big things coming up. Look forward to some tournament recaps in a couple of weeks. I do also want to plug real quick next week. If you're listening to this coming weekend, it's going to be the 26th and the 27th. The three of us, in addition to some other local players and the entire OG BIFPOD crew, will be competing in a little private RTT. Every single game of the single elimination, so all 7 games, will be streamed. They will be turned into our newfangled super short battle reports that are easy to digest, all of them about an hour in length. It's all going to happen next week. You're not going to want to miss it. We won't have a show. Maybe we will. We'll figure it out. But that's going to be going on, so look forward to that. But with that all said and done, I think we can move on to the main topic of today, which is all about this brand new Bugs Codex. So if you've been living under a rock or just don't really like leaks, just to catch you up to speed, the entire 9th edition Tyranids Codex was leaked in a couple of different places. There may be some bits and bobs that we don't entirely have figured out yet, but we functionally have every single datasheet, every single stratagem, the psychic powers, the warlord traits, the army-wide abilities. Like, it looks like it's all there, except for the Red Terror tier. We'll miss you. But it's all there, and we're all playing with it, and we're trying stuff out. It is not out in the wild yet. You won't see it at tournaments for several weeks, but it's here, and we have lots of thoughts on it. Alex, what are some of your first impressions having read this new codex and played a couple games with it?
It's weird having good data sheets, like really good quality data sheets. It's really hard for me to evaluate the data sheets as, like, you look at some of the stuff from previous codexes and you're like, oh, this is too good now because I can compare it to what was before. And I don't know if what we have is too good now because what we had before was so bad. I just don't know how to evaluate it. I have like PTSD from 5 years of a trash codex.
Indeed. I do want to mention before we go on, there are 2 giant question marks in the codex that we're not sure about, which are Crusher Stampede and the Leviathan supplement from Warzone Octarius. Yeah. We have no official word on what's going on with those. Correct me if I'm wrong, Alex, but I believe we are just operating under the assumption that it's all gone. We're not using it in practice right now. It's entirely possible that that's not the case, but it's just better to assume that it is, and maybe we're lucky and it's not. But there's a lot of reason to suspect that it's all gone, and we're going to continue the rest of this podcast assuming that none of that exists.
Yeah, there's too much stuff that's been like rolled in where you're like, that's out of the Crusher Stampede update, that's out of Octarius, and they're like now in the new book. And honestly, I don't really want to play in a world where the Crusher Stampede exists with this level of codex. That's not okay for anyone.
Yeah, there are some weird interactions that people have plumbed. If you leave Crusher and Levy, you can have a Hive Tyrant that does like 48 mortal wounds a turn just by stomping into things. Like there's some real silliness there's a lot of silliness in the book, but we're going to tone it down and just say we have the codex and go from there. All right. So with that all being said, let's talk about some of the biggest army-wide sweeping changes. I think the biggest completely new thing is the synaptic imperatives. Do you want to walk us through how that works, Alex? I know a lot of people have struggled to read the text. It's a little bit dense.
It's very wordy. But yeah, with my high-level English skills, essentially each turn at the beginning of the battle round, you are able to select a synaptic imperative that is attached to any of your synapse creatures. You get it once per game, and it lasts for the entire battle round. What happens is the person this is where the weird wordiness comes into play. Whoever you select, let's say it's the warriors, you take the warrior synaptic imperative, every single other synapse creature gets that imperative and now becomes a little 6-inch hub of that imperative. The way it is worded, it's like, is it just coming out of the warriors? Is it like, how does it activate? But yeah, they trigger, every synapse creature gets it, everyone within that synapse range gets that synaptic imperative for the turn.
Exactly. It's kind of like a canonical. You're picking an army-wide ability functionally every single turn, but you can only activate the ones based on what is currently on the table, unless there's a stratagem to use one that's already dead. But these are a pile of abilities. And now now I will one other very small caveat. They are very specifically not auras. They work exactly like an aura, but it specifically says it looks like an aura, it quacks like an aura, but it's not an aura. Nothing that interacts with aura abilities, making them bigger range, turning them off. None of that affects any of this. It just happens that they affect all units within a certain range, which is an interesting caveat.
Why?
I think it's specifically to prevent the plus 6-inch aura strat from giving these all 12-inch range. Maybe? I don't know. But Synapse is an aura. Synapse is down to 6 inches, by the way, for everyone, including Hive Tyrants, as far as I can tell.
Definitely made that mistake a couple times already. Whoops.
But these are not auras. They don't interact with aura stuff. But what are they? Let's cover over maybe 3 or 4 of them. Alex, pick one that is your favorite from the table.
I mean, should we save the best for last? Is that?
I don't know that we'll agree on what the best is necessarily, but pick.
Oh, okay, that's good. Hold on, let me actually bring this up. I thought I had it up from last night, but apparently not.
Mm-hmm.
Downloads, because that's where we got all this from.
Yeah, if you are looking to get your hands on this codex and you cannot find it, I can't point you anywhere super official, but if you join our Patreon on-only Discord for only $10 a month to talk to some of the best minds in the 40k community, including everyone on this screen right now, it does get passed around in there on a pretty regular basis. So one more perk that you might want to get from jumping on in. So, Alex, you got a synaptic imperative for us?
I think I'll go with a favorite just because I love it. So the Hive Tyrant has Relentless Ferocity. You pop the ability, every friendly Hive tendril unit, which is the new specific Tyranid keyword, within 6 inches gets to declare a charge even if they fell back. So if your positioning is correct, that can just be your whole army.
Army-wide fall back and charge.
Yeah,
Who doesn't
good.
love that? It's not bad. So I'll do another one. I think this is the best one personally, but I don't think it's the one that people are necessarily as excited about. In my mind, the best one is for my good friend the Maliceptor, which is all action based. So it says you can shoot. Again, this is functionally army wide. You have to set it up properly, but it's functionally army wide. You can shoot and act. You can advance and act. You can fall back and act. And you can psychic act and still cast normally. And you're like, okay, cool. So like we did this in Leviathan, right? My Hive Guard shoot and they still rod. Why does that matter? Wrong. This book is full of actions. There's some crazy ones in specific spots. And being able to perform them while doing other stuff has a bunch of wacky interactions. One of the big changes that gargoyles are now troops. They become one of the best R&D monkeys in the game right now. As they move 12 inches, now an additional D6 can do an action, and then as we'll talk about later, can then leave the table at the end of the turn. Biovores, I'll talk a lot about later. They have 2 different versions. They can shoot or they can act, and when they act, they spawn a set of mines. When this is active, they get to do both. They put mines on the table, and they do mortal wounds to something indirectly. The Maliceptor himself, we'll talk a lot about him later.
Yes.
Being able to have him do psychic actions and still do regular casts, also fantastic. So that's my personal favorite. It's definitely got the most utility, but I think, Alex, you can tell us what everyone's so attracted to is probably the flashiest one.
Yeah, I think this is just the most obvious, like, this is the best one. Zoanthrope's Warp Shielding. Monsters get a 4+ invulnerable save, and everybody else gets a 5+ invulnerable save. Here's an entire turn where your entire army has a 5+ invulnerable save minimum.
And as a reminder, these are tripped top of the battle round, not top of the player turn. So, Oh no, I'm going second against Tau. Oh darn, my whole army has a 4+ invuln, or a 5+ if it's not a monster. But the monsters are what's getting shot probably, so.
Yeah.
No. So those are some of the highlights there. There's a bunch of other ones that are really great that you should totally be looking into. We got exploding 6 to hit, exploding 6 to hit in melee, exploding 6 to hit at range, +2 to move and advance, +1 cast and deny. Like, there's all sorts of fun stuff in there. But those are some of the ones that are, I think, probably most exciting to people right now.
Mm-hmm.
So we got those as a change. Now these are your monofaction bonus. You lose out the ability to do these wholesale if you bring any GSC. Do you think that, obviously we haven't talked about a lot of the codex yet, but you obviously know about it, Alex. Do you think that is going to be enough to force people into playing mono Tyranids?
Oh man, probably. Like, it's one of those ones where the book as a whole is just way better than, no, it is. It's way better than GSE. Like, GSE was a like middle A tier book when it dropped, and then immediately afterwards, its counterpart that dropped at the same time got a buff, and then Tau came out, and then Eldar came out, and then Tyranids came out, and they're all way better. And until those get nerfs, GSE are just kind of left in like, oh, I guess we were okay. And now with this, like, losing those feels pretty bad. I think you can build an army without it, but I don't know if it's better. And it's probably a lot harder. It's going to take like really, really clean synergies to make the forces of the Hivemind list is better than just, yeah, guess what? My entire army has a 5+ invulnerable save.
Yeah, the stuff that comes out of the quality units that you have to grab out of the GSE codex to, justify not having those imperatives. Like, you're gonna have to get really, really cool units for that to be a thing.
It's going back to where, like, instead of the 50-50 split, like I was doing at LVO, it's going to be back again to where like 1,500 points is Tyranids, and you have like a little 500 point like utility detachment, and it's got to solve some really serious problems to be better than just getting all your imperatives.
Yeah, I think the things that you might want to be teching into GSC for right now, obviously a little bit of Alpha Strike from pre-moving Stealers are really nice. A 6-inch deep striking if somehow your action monkeys aren't sufficient, which like I don't really see. I think you might want to dip in for a Sanctus if Eldar continue to be this much of a menace, as he's got a lot of play into various flavors of elves. But like, I don't know that any of that is worth losing my act and do stuff. It's too much fun. And as we'll talk about later, one of the Hive Fleet psychic powers tied to Hive Fleet Leviathan allows you to activate one of these for just one unit, in the way that like Marines can put a unit into Dev Doctrine every turn kind of thing. To act one every single turn as a spell. And man, that is really good. So giving that up as well just feels like a big missed opportunity. Okay. So
I was gonna say, sorry.
Yeah.
I like the just hearing you guys talk, it's like an actual tough decision, it seems like. I feel like a lot of monofaction bonuses with armies that can soup, it's like, yep, the monofaction bonus is so good, I'm never souping. So it's cool that you guys are like actually having this discussion. It's nice to see a rule that's really good, but maybe GSC are good enough to lose that.
I mean, it might be an emotionally based decision right now, I'll be honest. I might just be wrong, and you should be playing pure Tyranids.
Yeah.
I'm willing to admit that.
We'll see how it develops.
Yeah.
It's been 3 days, and no one actually knows which one of those is better. So
yeah,
exactly.
They're both still on the table. That's the takeaway.
It's cool that there's no obvious answer,
Yeah. And we'll see how Tyranids things get shaken out. There's a handful of things that we fully expect are going to get 1 or 2 nerfs fairly soon. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, so those are our big thing, the big things. Let's talk about some of the data sheets, and then we'll jump into some of the other wacky abilities and stratagems. No, let's talk about stratagems first, because there's a couple stratagems that I think you have to look at the entire codex through the lens of. And without having those, a lot of data sheets seem decent, but are actually insane. So, Alex, you want to tell them about what one of those stratagems is?
Let's see. Probably one of the more basic ones, but pretty dang solid, is just Adrenal Surge. If you have a unit that has adrenal glands, it's just a 1 CP plus 1 attack on the unit. On warriors,
it's a monster. Yeah.
Or yes, if it's a monster, then it's D3 extra attacks. Obviously very good. Unfortunately, it's 2 CP if you're 19 models or more, because there was a part of me that just wanted to be like, yeah, 30 Hormigons, let's go.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. We a lot of people talk about how stratagems like this, they tell you what to put them on, right? Oh, this is the Hormigaunt stratagem, because obviously if it costs more, it's because it's so much better. I don't believe that for a second. This is the Hive Tyrant stratagem, in my mind. The warriors benefit from it a lot as well, but we'll talk about Hive Tyrants in a minute. And whenever you hear about a Hive Tyrant, just remember it has D3 extra attacks.
Yeah.
It's a lot. This next stratagem that I think is really important and sort of changes how you have to see everything is Shard Lure. So currently, we had two. This is sort of a wrapping together of two different stratagems that we got in Psychic Awakening that then rolled over and got nerfed in Arcturus. I don't know why, but they did. Anyway, what this does is you actually use it in the shooting phase now, which is a cool little twist. But when you hit an enemy unit with a Hive Fleet Synapse unit, so we're talking about some guns off of Warriors, some guns off of a Hive Tyrant, some guns off of a Trigon Prime. There's other ways to get other things Synapse as well. So a lot of different options for what you can do this with. Until the end of the turn, every time a friendly Hive Fleet unit declares a charge, if that enemy unit is one of the targets of the charge, so you can multi-charge with this, roll an extra die and drop the lowest. So every single, any charge that is going to be challenging just got a whole lot easier. And I think that, basically army-wide, you can use that stratagem every turn, and your charges just got way more likely.
Yeah, especially with a number of different ways to do, reroll charges through Behemoth, Kraken, and I think there's another one that I'm missing as well.
Basically everything with wings rerolls charges on the turn it comes in.
Yeah.
And obviously we've got command points. Speaking of wings, Alex, can you talk a little bit about Encircle the Prey?
You betcha. Encircle the Prey on units that have the Burrow, which is Raveners, Trigons, Molochs, stuff like that, and Fly, which is a lot more in the codex than people think. Venomthropes, Zoanthropes, Nerthropes, Gargoyles, all this stuff with wings. At the end of the turn, just take it off the board and put it in a deep strike. So you go in with your Hive Tyrant way deep, kill a bunch of stuff, and then leave. There is no, you can't be in engagement range or anything like that. Just go in, do your damage, and then get the hell out.
Yeah, the only contingency is that you can't jump back away on the turn you arrive. They actually got it right this time. Unlike with Defcoptas and Taraxi and whatnot. That's not in there. But yeah, those stratagems have all been with, very specific role players who can come in and kind of do the one thing. And you'll have maybe one unit of them in your army, maybe two. This works on everything. There are so many ridiculous things that you can pop this on, and it basically says, I don't get shot for a turn, right? We talk about Hive Tyrants being a big one. They'll jump in, they'll do a bunch of damage, they'll get out. You don't lose a turn of them. They come in next turn, they're not standing on an objective, but they're not gone. And yeah, the things you can use it on. Things with the fly keyword that you don't think about. Hierophant Biotitans.
That's the most absurd one.
I wonder if that's going to stay around. Screw you for even suggesting that.
The 5 people watching us have all gone to add one to their cart. Yeah.
Yeah, go right ahead. If you want to play a Hierophant if you go first, shoots and then disappears and doesn't get targeted turn 1, or if you go second, has a 4-up invuln turn 1, and then shoots, disappears, and doesn't get targeted turn 2, you can do that. It's a little bit risky, of course, because it's not strat reserve, so they could zone the table, and it's a very big footprint, but these are things that are out there. And again, like those other stratagems. I
see Lucas thinking about that. Okay, so the Death Office go here, the Battle Wagon goes here. Okay, you can't bring the Hierophant back in. Get out of here.
That would be such a hilarious change of roles given our history, Lucas.
Man, I hate the Tyranid Forge World Index. It's so dumb. I could rant about that for hours. That'll be another episode. Tune back in to hear me complain for 3 hours about Tyranid bugs. Big ones, rather.
Oh, man. But yeah, so that's the thing. And again, like those other stratagems, it is at the end of the turn. So you can jump up, score your objectives, do actions, count as holding things for Stranglehold, or for mission secondaries like on Data Scry and whatnot, and then get the heck out of Dodge. What it basically means is that you don't have to trade. A lot of armies in the game right now are buying a unit to get Stranglehold turn 1. It's just a thing you have to do. Right. Nick, you've got a squad of Scarabs for exactly that same reason. Lucas, I don't really know what your list is right now, but I assume you have Commandos or Stormboys or something that do this.
Nope. I do not.
You just put your whole army in the middle of the table anyway.
Absolutely.
So your whole army gets Stranglehold. Okay.
Yep.
But for a while you had units that did this.
Very orky.
It's a typical thing to take. People take Palace and Custodes. There's a lot of different things. You take an Eldar for it. And we just don't have to trade that unit. We spend 1 CP, we trade a CP instead of a unit. It's awesome. So those are the big ones. There's obviously a ton of other stratagems, but I think knowing about those couple of them on the front end is... Oh, and I guess Overrun. Alex, I know Overrun's your favorite stratagem. How about you? What happened to it?
It got side grade. I was about to say better, but that's not true.
I think it's better.
You're not allowed to be engaged to use Overrun, but you don't have to have this weird little 3-inch barrier between you and everyone else. But you aren't allowed to advance with it anymore. You just get a normal move. But so it's a little easier to pull off, and then you don't go quite as far when you use it. But it's still a fantastic, like, get a kill, escape behind a wall, or get a kill and like burst out into like move blocking. Or it's just good for speed. Sometimes you'll have that, like, they charged you somewhere in the mid board. They went for like to go for a trade. You get the kill, and then you just get to move your distance away. So then you just get to like basically double move on the next turn. I did that with warriors when I was playing a weird Hydra build, and so my warriors with Journal Glands were moving 8. So he came in, died, I moved 8, and then 8 on the next turn, and was immediately in his face.
Fantastic. Yeah, so it's a lot of fun. It's going to get used a lot, especially on Hive Tyrants, which I think will bring us into talking about some of the crazy glow-ups that all of our data sheets got. Tyranids have spent an edition and a half being talking about how we are the codex of god-awful data sheets with phenomenal stratagems. Now we're a codex with some very, very strong stratagems and phenomenal data sheets.
Yeah.
So obviously we lost a lot of the 8th edition style things. We lost double move, we lost double shoot, we lost double fight. All of those wholesale. There's not even like we don't even have a version of double fight for Hormagaunts or something, which I kind of expected, but that's all gone. Instead we have some crazy utility stuff, but now our data sheets are turbocharged. So let's do that same thing and go back and forth and pick maybe 5 or 6 data sheets that are worth talking about as some of the biggest glow ups. Where do you think we should get started, Alex?
I think we should probably just start with Hive Tyrants. I think they're going to be a key piece of like every single army. So they are a 0-1 now. Actually, you know what? You should do the Hive Tyrant one because I think you put more effort into studying the data sheets. I have actually not looked a ton at the Hive Tyrant. Gotcha.
So the Hive Tyrant is now 1 per detachment. Sorry for everyone who for that like 12-hour block thought it wasn't going to happen. It was going to happen. There's 2 separate data sheets, Winged Hive Tyrant and Regular Hive Tyrant, and of course there's also the Swarm Lord. All of them qualify as a Hive Tyrant, like a Tau Commander or a Captain or whatever, 1 per detachment. Now, they have received a bunch of stat changes. Notably, the Winged Hive Tyrant and the Regular Hive Tyrant are not the same base stats anymore. If you're on foot, you're Toughness 8 2-up save. If you're in the sky, you're still Toughness 7 3-up save. Still have a 4-up invuln. Still move 16 in the sky, 9 on the ground. They are weapon skill and ballistic skill 2 now, so they just shoot way better. And they've changed what war gear options we have access to pretty substantially. It used to be that grabbing an extra pair of wings didn't decrease your number of potential slots, even though it kind of does on the model, which led to a lot of very weird conversions of sticking extra limbs on Tyranids in various places. That's the wings take a slot now, but your feet do damage. So,
which I think is really I think that's really cool because that's what everyone did anyway. They're like, "Hey, the feet are the talons." Like everyone already did that, and then they were just like they modeled it in.
Yeah, why not? They are worse talons though. They're only AP3 1 damage, and they give you 2 extra attacks. This is a big change army wide. It used to be I have 1 pair of Scything Talons, I reroll 1s to hit. I have 2 pairs of Scything Talons, I get +1 attack. Well, that's gone. Every single Scything Talon is a Chainsword now. So if you have 4 Scything Talons, you have +4 attacks. That's awesome. And the Tyrant's little toes are no exception. So even with wings and no other weapons, for melee, she has 7 attacks. And then so that's a change. The smaller guns, the Carnifex guns, they're out. You can't take Devourers, you can't take Death Spitters. But the cannons got a massive upgrade, as did the Lashbone. You also can't take a pair of Bone Swords anymore. You got to take the Lashbone. The Lashbone now rerolls 1s to hit for being a Lash Whip. So you have 5 attacks hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, and your strength +3, so strength 10, AP -4, flat 3 damage. Fantastic. And then the guns have also gotten upgraded. They're both 36-inch range. The Venom Cannon is heavy 3 at 934, and the Stranglethorn Cannon is heavy D3 plus 3 blast 822. I think you're going to see heavy Venom Cannons all the time on these things. If they're on foot, and if they're in the sky, they're probably going to be taking Lash Bones to get access to a very spicy relic. The other thing that changed for them is that they hand out reroll ones to hit to 1 core unit. And that's about it. Everything else sort of applies to everybody. So that's what a Hive Tyrant is right now. You get all of that for, what is it, like 170 points?
160 plus 15 for the Venom Cannon if you're on foot, and then 190 plus 15 if you're in the sky.
Yeah, gotcha. Also, so noteworthy, the adrenal glands on them are 15 points now. Adrenals are now +1 move and strength and give you access to that sweet, sweet D3 extra attack stratagem.
The Lash Whip also opens up a stratagem for you. There's a specific Lash Whip stratagem, which I'm just bringing that up because I think it's a really cool bit of flavor. So, adrenal glands, toxin sacs, Lash Whips, and I think there's one other, Flesh Hooks. These kind of upgrades you can give on all your guys. They all open up specific stratagems that are like, do you have Flesh Hooks? Do you have Lash Whips? And so on and so forth. Not all of them are great, but I think it's just really cool that you have like specific upgrades that are like, you get a stratagem for that. Good for you.
What's the Lash Whip stratagem?
It's -2 leadership and also -1 on combat attrition.
Lucas loves leadership.
Yeah. So they're fun. I like that they have little baby abilities tied to them, and then they also have a stratagem. So it's not just buying a keyword like smoke grenades is and stuff. The Lash Whips give you reroll ones to hit. The Flesh Hooks let you scale for free. You go infinite movement, infinite vertical movement. The Toxin Sacs are 6 as auto wound and melee, and the Adrenal Glands are the extra move and strength. Little bit of abilities, and then great strats unlocked as well. So they're fun for that. But yeah, so that's the Hive Tyrant. He absolutely messes people up. Toughness 8 2-up save on foot is awesome. Toughness 7 and 3-up save less so, but again, you're never getting hit back, right? You go in, you probably kill your target. Maybe you have a relic weapon to help out with that. We'll talk about relics later. And then you leave and you don't get shot back, or you overrun and you jump away. And that's really sweet. But if we're going to talk about Hive Tyrants, we should probably talk about their favorite friend unit.
Bodyguard! You'll love to see it.
Yeah, character over 9 wounds? Doesn't matter.
I hope that this... Okay, as much as I actually kind of just don't want Bodyguard to exist, I'm not sure it's a particularly good mechanic. They need to change it to where like the bodyguarding unit still needs to be like visible or closer or something.
Mm-hmm.
I am kind of glad that they did it this way, where it is somewhat restrictive. We have one unit that can only protect one unit, because right now in all the other codexes, bodyguard is just like that bodyguard can just protect every single character. At least these are kind of like,
not in my book.
Okay, so the books that were written within the last
yeah, I guess it is like this one's restrictive and all the newer ones have not been.
Yeah. So Tyrant Guard as a data sheet got a fantastic boost. Their their toughness 6, they're 4 wounds and a 2+ armor save. So they're just absolutely tanky as hell. The combat got a lot better because the Crushing Claws don't have a -1 to hit anymore. If you want that, the Bone Cleavers are multiple damage. They can have Lash Whips as well, so they are rerolling their ones. And they obviously have the specific bodyguarding for any Hive Tyrant, which is just incredible. If your army is Battleforged and it includes a Hive Tyrant, then the Tyrant Guard don't take up an elite slot. And there's a lot of that in this book, where you take Zoanthropes and they unlock a Neurothrope, or you take Warriors and they unlock a Tyranid Prime, or vice versa. Yeah, they're really, really solid in combat. They're tough as hell. Even if you weren't running a Hive Tyrant, I could still see running the Bodyguard or the Tyrant Guard. They're only 40 points for a very, very tough model. That it's surprisingly good in combat. And if they're near the Hive Tyrant, I believe they get an extra attack.
Yeah.
And
they're one of the only core units in the book, so they'll be getting their reroll ones from him pretty often. If they don't get it from the Lash Whips, they're real great. Yeah, you see toughness 6, 4 wounds, 2-up save. Like, that's an Alaris Terminator without an invuln.
Yeah.
For 40 points. And again, for one turn, they have a 5-up invuln, or possibly more if you need them, but usually there's just sort of that one turn where you need the invuln. So they do fantastic at that. They're an excellent to the last, because they're going to stand behind a wall and hide all game, and you can easily chonk them out and then have them run out late game as an offense thing. They also have the funniest stratagem ever. Lucas, do you want to talk about the Tyrant Guard stratagem?
Yeah,
It's so good.
when you kill the Tyrant, you get like +4 to charge the killing unit and +1 to hit and wound against them.
Exactly.
That's all 1 CP, because why wouldn't it be?
I mean, it's only against one unit, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that makes it weird.
And it's only +4 to charge in an army that has tons of charge mods.
You know.
So they get really angry when you kill their homie, basically.
Yeah.
So that's a really good time. I think that you're going to see them most often with the Talons, because the Claws cost a lot of points, and the Cleaver, while it's nice to go up to 2 damage, I'd just kind of rather have 2 extra attacks. Especially because the Cleaver's only AP 1. You'll fight with the Rending Claws if you need to hit a harder target because it's got AP 4 anyway. So that's we'll see how that ends up shaking out. Tyrant Guard, fantastic. What other? I assume you like to talk about Warriors, Alex.
Yeah, so Warriors are probably my favorite Tyranid unit, and like, man, did they get crazy good. So they went to Strength 5, Toughness 5, which is just awesome, obviously. And then on their profile, like their just straight profile, they didn't get a whole lot different other than that. They did go to Ballistic Skill 3, which is a nice change. But their weapons are just nuts now. You don't pay for anything. Death Spitters,
Just the cannons.
Bone Swords, they're all free, yeah. And the Venom Cannons are 5 points. Like, let's be honest, those are just auto-include. Bone Swords are +2 strength, -2, 2 damage, +1 attack. So if you right? So if you have Adrenal Glands on Warriors, which are +1 strength, all of your Warriors are strength 8 with 4 attacks.
AP 2 damage.
AP 2 damage. If you have the combo of the Warlord trait that I was taking and a Hive Tyrant nearby, not even nearby, it could be fucking across the board, who cares? There's my one.
Yeah, Synaptic Link range is insane.
Then you can have Warriors hitting on 2s and rerolling 1s in combat and shooting. And when you've just got Death Spitters and Venom Cannons, and then in combat, and you have access to the Adrenal Glands strat, you've got 45 attacks at strength 8, AP -2, flat 2, hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s on the Warriors.
Seems okay.
They basically kill anything that they touch.
Sick. And this unit definitely, to counteract that, is like has no shooting or is easy to kill or isn't dominant, something like that, right?
Yeah, and then what you do is you put them in Leviathan so that they're transhuman for the entire game.
It would be kind of silly if they had like 1 CP -1 damage too.
Excuse me, if you're taking a 9-pack, it's 2.
Okay. All right.
But yes, so we should throw a quick bone to the Hive fleets because there's a lot going on before we get back to data sheets. Leviathan, I think, is the one that everyone's going to be immediately attracted to for that exact reason. Synapse units are transhuman. Non-Synapse is mini transhuman. They have access to that spell I was talking about to hand out the 4-up invuln to a monster unit, or act and do stuff, or exploding 6s in melee. Because the Warriors hand out exploding 6s in melee, right? Or is it shooting?
Melee.
They're in melee. The prime is in shooting. So yeah, that's the thing that unit can just do. And then in addition to the transhuman, everyone has 2 parts to their Hive fleets, and their second part is reroll a single hit roll every time every unit shoots, Master Artisan style. But we're Tyranids, we need more special rules. You want to talk about the infinite adaptive microbiologies or whatever they're called?
Yeah, the biomorphologies. So basically, you've got your main Hive Fleet trait, and then you've got a secondary adaptive Hive Fleet trait. The second one is typically lesser. It doesn't give you as much, but what you can do is at the beginning of the game, not even like you have to pick it beforehand, on the fly, turn 1 happens, you get to now choose to swap 1 out and swap a new biomorphology in. And a lot of them are very good. There's 3 tables, and each of the Hive fleets gives you access to 2. But I guess they're kind of themed, like this one doesn't get lurk, this one doesn't get feed or whatever. But you can swap them out for things like 3-inch additional consolidate. You can basically just make your whole army able to fall back and shoot, but with a -1 to hit, but who cares? +1 to the charge roll. Any endless multitude, which is the endless multitude, the keyword is gargoyles, termagants, hormagants. They get to do the Necron Relentless Expansionist thing. You can have your entire army perform heroic intervention.
Lucas is dying over there over how
I was very
ridiculous
happy
these are.
that he gets to do that to people. Now,
The
other way around.
I have a very long history of saying I can beat anyone who doesn't have army-wide heroics, so I can't beat myself anymore, I guess.
I mean, it just goes on and on. It's wild. Each time an attack with an armor penetration characteristic of 1 is allocated to the model, it counts as 0. You get to pick these on the fly, right? So if you're just like, oh yeah, you're a ton of AP1 spam. Okay, I'm just gonna turn off like half your AP.
Yeah, it's not only like once you've seen your opponent's army, but it's also like once you've deployed and you know who's going first.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is so much information. I think it's crazy powerful.
Oh, I'm going first, and you've deployed in a corner where you're very move blockable. My gargoyles move 6 extra inches. Boom. Done.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's a thing I can do.
So there's no custom Hive fleets in your
There
book.
is. If you want to play custom Hive fleet, you basically pick one of these to be permanent and one of them to be swappable.
Okay, but then it's like you have like mini custom even if you play a named Hive fleet with these.
Yeah. Every Hive fleet has the swap out customizability. Yeah. They're a lot of fun. There's all monsters have OBSEC in there. Unfortunately, that's not available to Leviathan. I think the Lurk table is probably the best one, and those are specifically not given to Leviathan, which I think was very intentional. So no OBSEC monsters, no double cover, no fighting up a bracket, no +3 inch range to psychic powers, which is the one that I would really like. But let's talk for a second about one of those that I think we moved over pretty quickly. Army, again, these are chapter tactics. They're always active the entire game. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Army-wide +1 charge. So we have army-wide +1 charge. We have basically any unit in our army has 3d6 drop the lowest charge. So we're already at an 8-inch on 3 dice, which is the best charge that GSC can do out of Deep Strike, right? Like, your entire army can do the thing that GSC thought was the best thing ever. And again, a lot of them natively reroll charges. And then there's 2 different ways in the book to get +2 to charge. One of them is charge a thing that's within 6 inches of a Lictor. You can do it at any time, so that Lictor can drop at 8. Lictor's also natively reroll charges. Sorry, drop at 9. Charge with +1 on 3 dice, pick the 2 highest. Reroll that. He gets in. All of your other Deep Strikers charge on a 6 on 3 dice, pick the 2 highest. That's the most reliable.
Is that native to the Lictor data sheet, or what is that?
That's a stratagem. Pheromone Trails, it's 1 CP.
Okay. Is it work for one unit or everyone?
Everyone who charges a unit within 6 inches of him, or maybe it's 1 unit within 6 inches of him, but it's definitely everybody. Let me get the exact wording up here. Use the stratagem in your charge phase, not at the start of it anymore. Select one enemy unit within 6 inches of a Hive Fleet Lictor model from your army until the end of the phase. Every time a friendly Hive Fleet unit charges, declares a charge that targets that enemy unit. So I don't see anything in there that says only that enemy unit. Add 2 to the charge roll.
Wild. Okay.
So
great.
If you want to play an Alpha Strike, this is the book to do it. We'll talk about Harspexes and Toxicrenes and whatnot later, but we have drop pods now that come in turn 1.
Can we also talk about the Death Leaper?
Well, hold on.
Yeah.
We do have a question related to warriors. I do want to ask one question related to warriors in the chat.
Sure.
Elster asks, is there any play to a 9-man shooting warrior unit, i.e. 3 Venom Cannon, 3 Stranglethorn Cannon, yada yada?
We are interpreting that as a miswriting. Currently, rules is written on anywhere that there are Venom Cannons and some kind of Venom Cannon, some kind of Strangle Cannon. It specifically says you can't take one of each, but it doesn't say you can take 2 of one. And in the case of warriors, it says you can take up to 1 every 3 of each kind. I think that's an accident. That's never been how that works in the past, and I don't think
shooting ring can only have 3 of the big cannons.
I think
Three of them
I
they
think you
can
get 3
total.
of one or the other. Yeah.
And you can
It
mix
rule-
the cannons though. Like
Yeah,
know,
totally. You could take 2 of
Stranglethorn and
one of the other.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. But I don't think that is going to end up staying a legal build. If you're gluing your models together, for the love of all that is four-armed and holy, do not do that. But if that is going to be standing as a rules as written argument for a while, absolutely. 9-man warriors are fantastic, and giving them extra shooting for very few points is great.
Would they still be good if you could only take 3 of the heavy cannons, like as a 9-man unit?
Yep,
100%.
I was running 2 9-packs just last night, and again, it's sort of incidental shooting, but like you weren't paying for it. And what are you going to do? Take another bone sword? Like, do you want 1 more attack, or do you want 3 shots at 24-inch range at strength 5 AP -2?
Hitting on 2s, rolling 1s, which again can then trip the 3d6 charge strategy.
Yeah. We have this weird thing where we say like, I don't know, you look at a shooting weapon that's on a 25-point platform, which is what the warriors are, and you're like, oh, it's not 2 damage, I don't know if I really want it. But look at what's in the meta right now. Like, strength 5, AP -2, 1 damage, that kills a lot of Eldar. That's a lot of like, oh, you didn't quite get your Scorpions or Banshees or whatever where you wanted them. Or hell, screw it, even just like Harlequins. If there's any time where those Harlequins don't get behind a wall after killing something in combat, they're dead. You're killing them from 24 inches away. Yeah, no, I think the warrior units are really, really good.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
That's one troop unit. Can we quickly talk about other troops? Not to belabor the point on all of them, but just like get maybe 30 seconds from each on each of the other 3 troops.
Yep.
So we talked about Gargs. Gargs are incredible. Just as a 12-inch moving OBSEC unit that at least 1 turn a game is advancing and acting. Awesome. Bouncing. Awesome. We didn't mention it. There's a stratagem for Endless Multitude, which is again Term Against Horm Against Gargoyles, which is in your command phase, regen D3 plus 3 of them.
Pretty good.
So I have 1 gargoyle survive. Oh no, that's not going to RND. Oh wait, I get minimum 4 back. It's a 5-man troop unit. It goes off.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Oh, that's wild.
And again, that the actions are just so wild because like 10 gargoyles, especially on the 5-up invuln turn, you got to be within 6 of synapse to get it. So it's not necessarily super easy, but like 1 or 2 can scrape by pretty reasonably into a lot of things, especially that there's not a ton of volume in melee in the game right now. So if they're hiding and then they're getting like, they're great. Termagants and Hormagaunts are dead to me. I know Alex really likes Hormagaunts, and he can talk about that in a sec. But they are 7 and 8 points a model respectively. For 8 points for a gargoyle, or 8 points for a Hormagaunt, I'd rather have a gargoyle. And for 7 points for a Termagant, I'd rather play 7 points down. It's
Termagants.
What do you think, Alex?
The Termagants feel bad. I think the only way you take Termagants now is if you're taking them with a Turbogon, because Termagant's bodyguard for Turbogons, which is kind of funny. You have to have a unit of 15 around the Turbogon. It's like pretty specific. But the only way I could ever see Termagants being good, it's very specific, is you take them in Chronos, and then you get plus 40 range if you're in Chronos, and then that opens up a spell, so you can bump them to strength 6, and then you can do the Fleshborer Hive, where you get plus 6-inch range and another plus 1 strength. So you have your Termagants at 28-inch range, strength 7.
What?
Yeah.
It's 1 damage with bad ballistic skill. Actually, that's not true. The Turbogon can bump them up to BS3, but it's still like, it's a gimmick. I don't think it's actually that great.
Does the Turbogon give them plus 1 to hit or plus 1 ballistic skill?
I think it's plus 1 to hit.
Okay. I was like, because if you can combo that plus 1 with the Warlord trait plus 1, if one of those was ballistic skill, and now we're hitting on 2s rolling 1s, like we're getting somewhere.
The Turbogon can regenerate the unit. I still don't think it's that great. Plus, they created a unit for free. But anyway, I do think there's some play in Hormagaunts. Okay, I'm with you, Lucas. I still want to be able to run my hordes. I want to be able to put 100 models on the board. And this is the one disappointment I have with the book so far, is I don't really see that like 100 plus models on the board.
Yeah.
Because the Hormagaunts are just kind of going to die. You can make some Hormagaunts that will hit crazy hard in combat, though. Adrenal Gland Hormagaunts, which kind of feels bad because now they're 10 points apiece, but Adrenal Gland Hormagaunts in Behemoth with the plus 1 wound, you're talking strength 5 Hormagaunts with 4 attacks apiece plus 1 to wound. Like, they will hit really hard. But again, they're 10 points. What if your opponent ever gets a line on them? They just pick up your entire unit because they're T3 with a 5+ save.
Yeah.
It's also a good thing there's no real like indirect right now that can handle hordes at all. It's just not really a thing.
There's no blasting 48-inch range, strength 6 crap. 20-year
Yeah,
crap.
that's AP2 to negate the fact they have a 5-up save now. Yeah, no, there's none of that.
Definitely none of
So
that.
yeah, in a different meta, there's totally a play for that, and I really hope we get to that meta because believe me, I am similarly a horde player. I really hope Gaunts get dropped down to 6 points at some point because then I would actually be interested in playing the Gaunt spam lists. I've got 240 or whatever termagants that are just waiting for the carpet to rise again, but for the time being, probably play warriors. You can spam warriors, to be clear. People are like talking about this in places. An army of T5 transhuman that has a 5-up invuln and one unit has a 5-up invuln all the time instead of just on one turn is very strong, as it turns out, when they're all also obsec and synapse, so they get to do a lot of the shenanigans. And they're only 25 points a model. So a squad of 9, you're going to pay 225 base, and then you're going to buy 3 venom cannons to put them up to 240, and then you're going to buy adrenal glands for the squad, which is 15 points no matter how many guys are in the squad. So that unit is 255 for 27 transhuman T5 wounds with a 5-up invuln once per game, possibly all the time, -1 damage.
And they're getting
Offset.
catalyst fed to them.
Yeah, they're getting catalyst, so they'll have a 5-up feel no pain. Like that's a crazy unit, and just take like I very realistically think that 30 plus warriors is a build that you're going to see once people can figure out how to make the models happen. It's just good. And I mean that's a kind of horde, I suppose. It's gonna look really cool, that's for sure.
Yeah. So you let me know if you guys disagree, but it seems like gargoyles and warriors are both great or excellent. Hormagaunts are situational, and termagants are a little bit worse than that.
Yeah,
That's
I think
how
Jorgons are just bad.
Yep.
They're
We
worse than
didn't
situational,
mention.
they're bad.
Yeah, I would say in the Art of War tier list they are overcosted, rarely seen. We didn't mention what happened to our poor devourers.
Oh,
Get wrecked.
How the mighty have fallen.
I may have got those nerfed. I don't know.
You got 2 extra shots. What's the big deal?
No, not on termagants. On
What?
termagants, they went from 3 shots at strength 4 to 2 shots at strength 3.
Oh.
The Devourer
Yeah.
on a Termagant is 2
A
shots
Termagant
in strength 3?
Is 18-inch range,
no.
assault 2, strength 3, AP dash, 1 damage.
Why would you ever take that over a flush borer?
Oh no, you wouldn't. It's horrible.
Yeah. Oh, you want to know the best part
Who
though,
wrote
Lucas?
that rule?
Lucas,
What?
Lucas, do you want to hear the best part?
Yeah.
It costs 1 extra point per model.
Oh, that's
Ah.
right.
More expensive than the flush borer?
Yeah.
Yep.
What?
2 shots at strength 3, same range, both assault versus 1 shot at 5-1.
Yeah. It's
I
more.
don't
It's one
know.
more shot. It's way better, guys. Come on.
Absolutely. Anyway, so the devil, my 60 devil gaunts are gonna go live in horny jail for a while. They'll rise again someday, but for the time being, not allowed. Okay, let's talk about some more insane data sheets, and I think it's time to talk about the Maliceptor. Sorry, do you want to talk about something else first?
Well, we talked about lictors earlier. I wanted to know what you thought about the Death Leaper because
Sure, we should talk about Death Leaper. Death Leaper is cracked. He's
Yeah.
nuts.
I was like, is it worth 25 points more?
Oh yeah.
Oh
All
yeah,
right.
no, I don't think you're ever gonna take a regular list.
Unless
Why
you
do
just
think
want
that?
both.
Yeah, you may take the pair of them. Lictors are 70 points now, and you're
Mhm.
like, what? This thing used to be like 35 point or 32 point. How many points was a lictor?
37.
34, 37. Yeah, this was a dirt cheap thing that got R&D, and now it doesn't work anymore. And it's almost like GW saw that this was going to happen and adjusted the data sheet accordingly. Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Lictors mess people up in melee now, and Death Leaper is very, very similar. We'll talk about Death Leaper's stats, but just for comparison, he picks up 2 wounds and 1 attack over the regular Lictor, and 1 point of invuln, but otherwise he's the same stats-wise. So that's movement 10, weapon skill 2, strength 7, toughness 5, 7 wounds on him, 7 attacks, and a 4-up armor. He is strength 7, AP -3, flat 2 damage in melee. Whew! And he messes people up. He's got a couple of special rules. He's got the superior chameleonic skin, so he's -1 to be hit. He's got the cool new sneaky boy rule where he can't be targeted outside of 12 if he's receiving the benefits of cover. And he's got a 4-up invuln. Regular lictors have a 5-up invuln. He's got It's Out There. The Tyranid rules, man. The names of all of our rules are the best in the game. We've got It's Out There. We've got It Itches. A lot of fun stuff.
So good.
So It's Out There is a 6-inch aura of you can't do actions. They don't end, but you can't start them. So that's hilarious. He always strikes first. As I said earlier, he's got the Lictor keyword, so he can trip the +2 to charge stratagem. Lictor's deep strike weird now. It's not entirely clear what the rule is supposed to mean. I'm going to play it as you have to either outflank or deep strike onto a terrain feature wholly. There's a couple different ways to read that, but I think that's probably the most reasonable one. And then we've got the reason you're taking him in the first place, probably, which is Fear of the Unseen. While an enemy unit is within engagement range of this model, that unit cannot be selected for stratagems, and that unit cannot be affected by stratagems used by your opponent when the unit is selected to shoot or fight.
It's so good. It's so good. And like it starts to like expand out. You're just, like you hit the obvious ones, right? You're like, oh cool, they can't do like no rerolls if you were to charge into like a bike unit for custodians and no transhuman. That's really awesome. And then you're like, oh well, they wouldn't even be able to get to use like a CP reroll. That's kind of cool too. And then you're like, oh, they can't interrupt. So this is a fight last. Oh, and if you could wrap them, they can't desperate breakout.
Yes. Goodbye, desperate breakout. Get out of here.
Turns off fights on death as well.
Yeah.
It's so good.
And yeah, so and the fact that he's already drawing everything else in the army near him means that like you do this crazy shenanigans where you're going to get everything wrapped off. You're going to charge him in. He's going to hit his 8-inch 3d6 rollable charge because, you know, we've been relying on that in GSC for our power units the whole time. It's still fantastic. It's like was a 94% success rate or whatever. You pop him in with that. He pops the strat. Your entire army out of Deep Strike is charging on 6 inches, 3 dice. You wrap everything, or literally one thing. It doesn't have to be everything, and they're stuck. They're just done. You can't. Yeah, it's over. He's absolutely hilarious, and we'll see what kind of crazy shenanigans you can cook up with that. And again, he's no slouch in melee in his own right. 7 attacks at weapon skill 2 at strength 7, neg 3 flat 2, strength 8 if you're playing Behemoth. The dude hits like a very small truck, and he's 95 points.
You do exactly what Alex is saying, like run in, use them offensively. They can't use any defensive strats, and then maybe you took like +3-inch. What is it? +3-inch pylon? Is that one of them? Is it also console?
So all of there's like 8,000 different ways to get bonus pylons and consoles, and they all cap at 9 inches. So yeah, you can have a ton of stuff kill things. Console 9 and
wrap
jump into the wrap.
And then it's like, cool, I've deleted your thing that you couldn't save, and now I've wrapped you and you can't desperate breakout. Seems really good.
Yeah. No, I think he should be in most lists, I think.
All right. That's the guy I was like most excited about when I saw that role. I was like, this is crazy.
Maliceptor time?
Yeah, I think it's Maliceptor time. You want to talk about the Maliceptor, Alex?
Yeah, for sure. So his stats definitely got a good little boost. Weapon skill 3, ballistic skill 3, and he got 1 inch faster. He went from 7 to 8, so cool. T8, like a lot of the monsters did, which is still a fantastic boost. And then he is 15 wounds, which is obviously just getting into that like stat check area where you're like, can you kill 15 wounds of T8 with a 4+ invulnerable save? I don't think you can.
Especially not because it's transhuman.
Yeah. His weapons are kind of cool. So he still only has 3 attacks, which at first I was a little disappointed with. But he has 2 different profiles on it. He has a sweep and a strike. And sweep is double your attack, so he's got 6. And it's strength user, it'd be 3 flat 2. So it's pretty good. He can start knocking out whatever's gotten in close if it's kind of that mid-range toughness. And then his strike is +3 strength, -4 AP, and 2d3 damage, which is cool because I think that's the first one we've ever seen. So average of 4 damage and strength 10. But that's not really why we're here for him. It's nice that he can punch up a little harder, but the old ability of the aura of -1 strength to shooting range or shooting weapons that used to be 2 CP is now just an action. So if you want, you can do it every turn. Obviously, you can't use it defensively anymore, or reactively, I should say. You're about to be shot, you pop the stratagem, and away it goes. You've kind of got to do it each turn. But awesome. Honestly, -1 strength on incoming fire every turn is a great little defensive buff. And then Psychic Overload, which is really the jam.
Buckle up, boys.
Each time this model successfully manifests a psychic power or completes a psychic action, if the result of the psychic test was 7 or more, after resolving that psychic power, the closest enemy unit within 12 inches suffers a number of mortal wounds shown in the table below. So if you are at 8 in your brackets, it's your top, middle, and bottom bracket, you take 3, 2, and 1 mortal wound respectively. It's a 12-inch range. It does not need line of sight. It is very easy, as far as we can tell, to do 4 spells in a turn, or 3 spells in an action, because you're able to use an action essentially for free when you use the Malice after Synaptic Link. So you can just go, here's a Smite, here's a Psychic Scream, here is Neuroparasite, which is one of the new Tyranid spells, which is situational, but it's okay. And also here's an action. Here's 12 mortal wounds on top of all of it that don't need line of sight.
Yeah. And you may be thinking, oh, but you got to cast in a 7, right? Isn't that going to be a bit of a challenge? Not really, because then if you're taking this guy, you're also taking a Neurothrope, and the Neurothrope tells him to cast on 3 dice, pick the 2 highest. And if you want 2 of them, because why wouldn't you want 2 of them, you can take a Warlord trait on your Neurothrope, so he tells both of them to cast on 3 dice, pick the 2 highest.
Yeah.
He's insane.
This is the guy that is going to allow Tyranids to like play Stranglehold or Direct Assault, and you just jam him into the center and say, come on, come into the center, let's see what happens. I went through, he, on his own last night, killed an entire unit of Wolfen. Or not Wolfen, the Wolf Guard, Vanguard Veteran equivalent for Space Marines. 9 of them, just by himself. There's 9 mortal wounds on top of everything else. Here's a Super Smite, because I was rolling on 3d6, get the 2 highest. Here's Psychic Scream. I started with Neuroparasite. Here's like 19 mortal wounds. Okay, get out of here.
Yeah. We'll talk about this a little bit later, but I played a Bugs Mirror recently with 2 of these guys and some Zoes, and in a single turn, I killed 4 Screamer Killers and 2 Zonethropes. That's 44 total mortal wounds. I'll remind you that all of this cost me a total of 1 CP, and actually it was free because I spent 25 points on a pregame upgrade to get to use that stratagem once for free. That 25 points is also really good on him because it means he always acts up a bracket. So he's you have to get him down to 3 wounds in order for him to count as being at bottom, because it's 8+, counts as being at top. You count as having double, and our heal strat is now command phase, and it's now just 1 CP for D3. So if he's at 1 wound, I can still get him back up to fighting on top bracket for 1 CP on a 5-up. If he's got 2 wounds, it's on a 3-up. I'm at top bracket again. Obviously, just a 1 CP fight on top bracket would be more useful in some situations, but he outputs like crazy, and he's going to keep doing that all the time, because if he's Leviathan, you're going to be casting. He's probably getting the Link stratagem if you don't need it on your warriors, so he's acting and doing the thing and casting the 4th spell. You need 1 of them. Maybe you want 2 of them. Maybe you want 3 of them. I don't know yet. But he's a real piece of work, and I think if something's going to get nerfed in the NIDS book, it's going to be him.
He's the first target that I can see zoning in on him.
Yeah, fix the like double Venom Cannon Hive Tyrants mess, like that's because that's just written wrong. That'll get FAQ'd, not nerfed. Fix Bodyguard in some way so you're not overrunning into Bodyguard range and ridiculousness, and then fix the Maliceptor. He also has Horned Chitin, which I just realized, which is hilarious. So on the charge, he does mortals. On a 2-up, it's flat 3. On a 5-up, it's D3 plus 3. Because there weren't enough mortals going around. And again, he's movement 8. Like this, you're like, oh, it's only 12 inches. This is such a close range thing. It only works by like planting him somewhere and then hoping people get close. He's movement 8, and obviously none of his psychic stuff is contingent on advancing. So you get within 21 of him, unless there's movement modifiers on him, and he automatically is within 12 of you. And again, it doesn't need line of sight.
So there's also the thing that lets you advance an action, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, but you can only do 1 psychic action? There's not like a strat that's like do 2 psychic actions or anything?
No, not that I know of. But his psychic action that he does for putting up the shield, that's not limited to one Maleceptor per turn. They can all do that.
Yeah.
Unlike say the Biovore's action, which is tripped on just the one. But yeah, you can't like have him do the action and mental interrogate and cast 3 spells.
Gotcha.
As much fun as that would be.
You can't cast
if we're
5
talking
spells with your 2 spell psyker.
No, only 4, unfortunately.
Unlucky.
Unfortunate.
Yeah, so it goes. If we're going to talk about a Maleceptor, we should probably talk about his best friends, the Zoanthropes. We already mentioned the Neurothrope, hands out the 3d6 cast, has +1 to cast built in, casts 2. But Zoe's are the other half of this absolutely horrific pile of mortal wounds. You want to talk about what a Zoanthrope does, Alex?
Yeah, sure. Their stats, they got the same treatment as all the other kind of mid-range Tyranid stuff. They all went to Strength 5, Toughness 5, and a lot of them gained a wound, so they're up to 4 wounds now. They're no longer a 3+ invulnerable save. They don't want that in the game anymore. I get it. They have Warp Blast. If they are casting a Smite or a Witchfire power, they add 1 to the Psychic test for each model in this unit, which is hilarious because it means they always have a +1 minimum. And then if it is a Smite specific, they do an extra mortal wound per Zoanthrope, up to a maximum of 3. So typically speaking, your Zoanthropes are D3 +3 on their Smites, if there's a unit of 3, and it's very likely that you will then spike into Super Smite range and get your D6 +3.
Yeah. The bonuses to cast do not cap, so if you take 6, you're +6 to cast. Go nuts. Yeah. They only cast 1, so they're not doing anything other than smiting most of the time, but man, do they smite well. And again, they're another thing with fly, so they can jump out, do D6 +3 mortal wounds on a super smite, and then bounce out of town before having to get interacted with in any way. It's silly. And they're 50 points a model to again be T5 transhuman 4-up invuln. It's great.
Yeah. They are expensive, but I think their damage output finally matches their price point. Because before they were 150 for 3, and I don't know, they just didn't do anything. They just kind of existed.
Yeah. Lonely Scrup also points out that as we all know, Maleceptor can't actually cast those psychic actions in the first place because he's not a character. Most of those require being characters.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Anywho'sville. This has all been really depressing because that stuff's really broken. Let's talk about stuff that's less broken but still fun. What fits that category for you, Alex?
Raveners.
Yes, I was hoping you'd say that.
I love the new Ravener one. They are same thing. They went to Ballistic Skill 3, just like the Warriors. Strength 5, Toughness 5, 4 wounds, 5 attacks, 4+ armor save. So they're still not the toughest thing in the world. There's going to be a lot of stuff that just gets to point at them and invalidate their armor save. But they still move 12, and they have Scything Talons and Ravener Claws. So they will have 7 attacks apiece, which is just a bonkers number of attacks. They're all single damage, but who cares? We're just going for volume. It was really funny charging somebody with 5 Raveners and grabbing 35 dice, and they're like, "What the hell are you doing?" Hold on, let me explain. They're always -1 to be hit in combat because of Serpentine Bodies, and you can still put Death Bitters on them, and they don't cost anything. So they're still a viable shooting unit too. They're just like a really good all-around unit. They're fast, they hit hard. And they're not quite as squishy as they used to be. Because 4 wounds at T5 is still just a good amount of body to put out, even if it has a bad save.
And they're burrowers, so they just leave.
They can also do the deep strike and stuff. Although those guys, most of the time, if they can get their kill, depending on the turn, I would probably rather overrun than burrow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because they're so fast.
They're not synapse, so they don't get to take advantage of a lot of the stuff the Warriors do in that way, but they are still core, so they can also still be hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s all day, every day, which is awesome. Raveners are a lot of fun. Shall we talk about the Parasite?
Yeah, sure. I guess people have already kind of seen that leak in general, but it's still cool.
My suspicion with this model was that I was going to love it and I was not going to care at all about the itching. And my suspicion was correct. This model is awesome at an 80.6 wounds, 16-inch move synapse creature. And that's basically all it needs to do. She's not unique. This was something that kind of surprised us. She's not a named character. You can just take 3 of them if you want, but she can also take relics and warlord traits. And one of her warlord traits is count as a 5-man OBSEC unit. So she hops around 16, says, surprise, I'm a 5-man OBSEC unit. My objective now, and then leaves, and then doesn't get attacked all that hard because she's -1 to hit, no rerolls. You could.
She really is she really is a utility annoyance character. She's not blowing people up. She's not murdering everything. She can like hit some flanks and chaff, or keep up with Hormagaunts or Raveners and keep them in synapse range. And then just be annoying because every once in a while you're going to get a Ripper Swarm out of her or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. She's really cool. She's a nice way to plant Shadow of the Warp deep, synapse deep. But yeah, you're not throwing her into like a hardened unit and expecting to do anything.
Yeah, she's a fun utility piece, and that's one of my favorite sort of things that exist in the game. The 2 things that we have to talk about Carnifexes, I guess. I'm not like yes. I got excited about them, and then everyone was excited about them, and then I was less excited about them. But what's going on with Carnifexes, Alex?
Well, there's 3 different variants still: Thornback, Screamer Killers, and regular Carnifexes. I think that the Screamer Killer is the one that people immediately glommed onto just because it has the big number issue where it's got it's movement 10, it's got 10 attacks, which obviously is great. I'm not trying to like reduce the value of that. That is some crazy numbers. All of the Carnifexes got -1 damage just built in. They are core, and yeah, they just hit really hard. I think this is another one of those potential stat checks. They're 9 wounds with a 2+ save, -1 damage. They're just crazy good combat dreads, equivalent with what like any really good Marine dreadnought can do. Probably better, really. Yeah, they're just gonna be able to mash into you and do a ton of damage. Strength 6 with AP -3, flat 3 with 10 attacks on a Screamer Killer. Yeah, pretty good. It's not going to be a whole lot slowing them down. I would say their only downside is that they don't come in units. They're single model, so they will not be receiving buffs actually particularly well. So the fact that they're core isn't even really that big a deal, because if you're like, I'm going to hand out +1 to hit, okay, 1 Carnifex gets that, not 3. But they're still going to be amazing. I think you're definitely going to see some lists where you're just like, ah, shit, there's 9 Screamer Killers across the board from me.
Wait, how do you get 9 Screamer Killers if they're a unit of 1?
You buy them in 3s, and then they split up. Yeah. They deploy within 6 inches of each other. And again, the Invuln from Zoanthropes is tied to monster keyword, not synapse keyword. So they'll be 4-up Invulns for a turn, all of them. So they get quite a substantial blunt to damage.
I'm gonna guess turn 2 when they jam right into the center of the board and they go, they're all 4+, and you just gotta kind of like live with it.
Yeah, that's another place where I think the Parasite is going to be really great, to just sit in amongst a giant blob of Carnifexes and say, hey, they're all 4-up Invulns. You're not going to do anything about it because your Tyrant's going to go off and do stuff, and your Warriors are targetable. So having her as super mobile for that is great. Fred asked if Carnifexes are 2-up or 3-up save. Neither, they're 1-up save. They're 2-up save base, but you buy the Spore Cyst for them and they're no longer -1 to hit. Instead, they're always in light cover. So they're a 1-up save. Which is just, it's expensive. It's 15 points a model. I don't think it's actually probably worth taking, but I think you're going to see it a lot because people really like to go over the top on such things. So those are Carnifexes. The other People's Champion unit that I think we're going to see a lot of, because a whole bunch of Crusher players are going to be really sad and still want to use their toys, is the Harpy. Have you tried the Harpy yet, Alex?
I did. I was really excited about it, and then I went second against 7 Void Weavers. It just died immediately, and I was like, it was definitely that new model syndrome where you're like, oh, I get to put the new thing on the board. Dead. Okay. Immediate death. But I mean, it's got 2 heavy venom cannons. It's the thing that people wanted to do with the Hive Tyrant. And it'll actually get it. It's going to hit pretty hard. It gets some Spore Mines. It's not entirely trash in combat either. I think it's pretty good for 170 points.
It's
especially if you want to buy for the 4+ invulnerable save on it all the time. like Dermic Symbiosis.
The analog is like, it's kind of like both AdMech planes smashed together. Because it bombs exactly the same way the AdMech planes do, or it can drop spore mines, and it shoots with 6 shots at 934.
Yeah.
Which is just great. It's BS3. Obviously, it's not core, but yeah, you can give it the 4-up invuln from Dermic. You can cast 4-up invuln on it. So you can, as Leviathan, you can just have 2 that have 4-up invulns all the time, except for the top of turn 1. Only one of them will, which is fun. It does the double pivot thing the way AdMech does. It can hover and go 15. And obviously it has fly, as it is flyer. It's an aircraft now, though, so it can't like tag stuff and tie things up like it used to be able to. But it can leave the table if it's really concerned about getting shot at. So she does a lot of fun. And then the last unit that I think I really want to talk about is my boys, the Biovores. Because I am so excited to put these guys back on the table. Biovores, as described earlier, can either create spore mines or shoot, or during the go turns, they can do both. When they create mines, they just create 3d3 of them, anywhere on the table within 48. Here's 3d3 mines. Now, mines don't block movement or deep strike anymore, but they still explode just for moving within 3 inches of them. Now, it is model by model. It's not like you pop one and the whole unit explodes, unfortunately, but it's also optional. So you say, okay, clearly you have to come grab the center objective. Here's 6 mines, and mines now do an average of 1.16 mortals per. So here's an average of 7 mortal wounds if you want to come hold the center objective. Have fun. Oh, you want to come over here? Boom, mines. I don't think that you can charge through them, right?
I don't think they block movement in any way, other than that you're not allowed. The same thing as any other model where you're not allowed to end like bases over top of each other or anything.
So can you declare charge on them?
Yes.
Okay.
Totally. As far as I can tell. Yep. And you can charge right through them and end up on the backside if you want to. So they still can be utilized as a slingshot if you're so inclined. And you will still get to move extra inches off of them. But in the way that the game has sort of shrunk down, I don't know that you want to do that for when you're taking mortal wounds in response.
I meant like move guys up near the objective, shoot so there's like 1 or 2 left, and then charge them to take the objective. I'd be like, okay, I guess I'll take 2 mortals to take this instead of 7.
Yeah, there's smart ways to play around it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's just a good time and a lot of fun.
Yeah,
and again,
Illinois.
they then when they then shoot with the guns, D3 a shot, so 3d3 from the squad, and every hit is a mortal wound. So it's 3 mortal wounds anywhere on the table every turn.
Except that it's still got the new, and I assume this is going to be for everyone soon enough. You need to have a spotter.
Yes.
So
yes, you do.
The exact wording in this is, this weapon can target units that are not visible to the bearer as long as they are visible to a friendly High Fleet Synapse model. And I'm assuming that hopefully in the future that will be the case for a lot of indirect fire, is that something needs to be spotting for it. It doesn't do anything in the midboard, because obviously something is going to be able to see into the midboard, but it does prevent that first turn, like everyone's in their little hidey hole L, and that you're not just getting like nuked by indirect fire immediately right on turn 1 behind a wall. So I hope that kind of goes along for everyone.
Definitely. It's another place where I think the Parasite is hilarious, to jump over 16 plus D6, cut an angle, see something, let Biovore shoot at it, and then disappear.
Mm-hmm.
Hive Tyrant obviously can do that one as well. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
Can we go my last favorite unit?
Yeah, go for it.
Venomthropes. Venomthropes went from, oh my god, they're so bad, to like, here, let's just give them all the rules and make them great in combat and not increase their points value at all. So before it was like, in certain points in the game's history, we've had it like where shooting killiness just kind of got too high. And I went, okay, I'll just take 3 Venomthropes to have a -1 aura. Great. They're terrible at everything else, but at least I'll have a -1 aura that can protect my army a little bit. And now Venomthropes are movement 8 instead of movement 5, weapon skill 3 instead of weapon skill 4. They went up in strength, they went up in toughness, they went up in wounds, they went up in attacks hugely. 4+ armor save. They always wound on a 2+, as long as it's not a vehicle. It's the poison kind of stuff. Once per turn, you can select a unit that isn't a monster or vehicle. On a 4+, it's not allowed to fall back. At the start of the fight phase, on a 3+, at any unit within 3 inches, they take a mortal wound and fight last. And that is like the not eligible until all other units have done so. And then they also still have their -1 aura, which doesn't work on Titanic, so no protecting your Hierophant or Harridan for -1s. But they have 5 attacks that wound on 2s. It's so good.
What's the stats of the weapon?
AP -1.
Please don't tell me it's like 2 damage or something.
No. It's
No, it's
1
1
damage,
Okay.
AP -1. But I
And
mean,
again, they're core, so they can get the +1 to hit. They can get the reroll 1s to hit. This unit can put out a unit of 5 puts out 25 attacks, hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, wounding on 2s. If you took a Tyranid Prime, he can give them reroll 1s to wound.
Sick.
yeah,
How many
Yeah.
points is a Venom Throat?
35. It's pretty good for.
Infantry as well. So they can
4
blast
wounds
through
at
those
T5,
walls.
yeah.
Yeah, they're fly, they're fast, they hit hard, they can make people fight last. I could definitely see you swapping into your entire army can heroically intervene for your trait, and then you just put the Venom Throats like just behind the front line and like, come on, come and charge me. I've got 5 of them. They're just gonna make you fight last. And then you can't leave combat. They're awesome. I'm gonna have 3 in every single one of my armies.
Yep. Yeah. The question is not do you take Venom Thropes, it's how many Venom Thropes do you take. And I think 5 seems really nice to spread out the auras, and also because now they're R&Ding in on your turn in your DZ, because you gotta have something to do that, and they don't need they don't like none of their auras matter on your turn on like turn 1, turn 2, so they're a lot of fun. Fred asks, you're telling me Tyranids are the reason Custodes got a 4+ versus Mortals? Yes, and I don't think it's enough. I think that if I dump 40+ Mortals on a Custodes player per turn, I don't care if they save half of them, they'll still take 20 mortal wounds.
And then they'll get shot in charge.
Yeah. The 40 mortal wound build, there was not a lot of shooting or punching it. There was enough. Cool. So those are the highlights of the data sheets. Things we didn't talk about that I'll mention briefly. All the snakes are mildly amusing. They have stupid amounts of attacks. That's a lot of fun. Gene Stealers got hit really hard. Makes me sad.
I think at most you take 1 Gene Stealer unit if the meta goes that way, where you need an infiltrator, because that's what they got. They're infiltrators now, but they're pretty expensive and they don't hit like pure strains. But yeah, I mean, sometimes if something is really aggressive, you just go, stay away from me.
They can, like if you play them as Behemoth, they'll be strength 5. They can get +1 to wound. They're core, so you can have them hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s. Like everything seems like it's there. They don't have the 4-up invuln in against shooting anymore. Like
they don't have advance in charge.
They don't have advance in charge, but Onslaught is automatic now instead of being risky, which is just incredible. That so many of our spells are synaptic link range, so they can go way downfield. Another use for the Parasite in my mind. To be way out of deny range, and you can be casting at +1 on 3 dice, like with a reroll if you need it. So like you can definitely make Stealers happen, but they're like a one and done Alpha Strike kind of thing. They're not the super fast, goes everywhere, has a really big threat range that they used to be. They kind of fit into that commando role where it's like, if you want, you could park like 10 or 20 Stealers on the line and say, hey, if I go first, you're just kind of screwed. But I don't see a reason to be doing that right now when there's so much other crazy good stuff available to you. And they lost OBSEC because they're not troops anymore. But they are core. They're one of the best things that you can give OBSEC to if you're taking Swarmy. I think Swarmy still has a place in some builds, maybe. But he's not nearly the auto-include that he used to be. We didn't mention a lot of the other big bugs, but Haruspexes and Toxicrenes both seem fantastic now. Totally try those. I just haven't had a chance to yet. Exocrines still hit like a truck. They're one of the best uses of the 4-up invuln. That's a really great one piece to have in the back that, you've got threat saturation going on. You're not going to get to him. And anything else that we missed that is worth covering data sheet wise real quick?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think we've gone through a good amount. Yeah, okay. I think we'll leave it there.
Cool. So then in terms of Hive fleets, I was talking about Leviathan. We talked a lot about it, how it seems really great. I know there are other Hive fleets though that have got your interest peaked. what might people be interested in checking out other than Leviathan that might have a build or two in them?
I mean, Behemoth +1 strength and reroll charges is obviously very good. You go very melee focused. You can have some very strong, like Hormagaunts. The Hydra build, if you outnumber your opponent, you get +1 to hit. Gorgon, just wounding everything on 4+s because it's at range and combat that you are poison 4+. There's a lot of utility out there. I'm not even sure what's going on yet. It's so varied and versatile. The Leviathan one, I think, is just the really obvious. Like, it is very like versatile within it, and you just get your transhuman on everything, which is obviously very strong. But there's definitely some things that don't care about that. The Gorgon stratagem, if you have toxin sacks, is you auto wound on 5+ to hit. And I think if you were to do just even like a 20-man Hormagaunt unit, and then you would actually slot Swarmlord in, you just charge in with Hormagaunts, and you're like, yeah, here I hit you like 27 times on 5s. Here's like 27 wounds at -1. Like, you can make Hormagaunts do some serious heavy lifting. But
Gorgon also has the toughness 9 available, which is a lot of fun.
yeah, you can hit toughness 10.
10?
Yeah, you can make a model toughness 10. There is a relic for +1 and a warlord trait for +1, I believe. Hold on, make sure I'm not getting mixed up here. But it would be really funny to just be like, here's my toughness 10 Turbigo or something. I don't think it's good, because what's the difference between toughness 10 and toughness 9? But right, you only get it in combat anyway. Is the
with the
Yumgarl factor. Yeah.
That relic got such a glow up. I'm excited. It's a shame that there are so many good relics. We have gone from last edition, where our relics were probably the worst in the game. Like, you just wouldn't take them sometimes until we got the Leviathan supplement. Oh, I guess I have the Norn Crown. What was happening? And now our relics section is stacked. You want to talk about pick a relic to talk about?
Oh Lord, where do we even start?
You should talk about Seer Hive, because I know you've had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, Seer Hive is hilarious. Unless you're fighting a vehicle, basically it is a weapon that if you have toxin sacks, you just get, if you hit, you wound. So you put it on something like a Trigon Prime with 12 attacks, and you're like, look, here's 12 hits, 12 wounds, take it.
Yeah. And you combo that with the warlord trait to reroll all hits. So yeah, I'm hitting on 3s, full reroll. It's fun. So that's a good time. I think a lot of people are also very excited about Shard Gullet, because again, we have the best names in the game by far. Relic Heavy Venom Cannon that pushes it up from strength 9 to strength 12. So when Custodes bikes on 2s if they're not transhuman. AP 5. So I don't know what kind of save you have, but it's an invul now. And damage 5. Bye bikes.
Yeah. Bye-bye. You put them in Leviathan, and when you get rerolls to hit, and the warlord trait where you can get 1 reroll to hit, wound, blah blah blah, once per turn. You can make that guy super accurate.
He's a lot of fun. I think the passenger is super interesting. +2 advance and charge for an adrenal glands model. And it doesn't replace the adrenal glands, it's an addition to them. So a tyrant with adrenal glands in this relic moves 19 and then charges at +2. If you take if you go with the +1 charge High Fleet, charges at +3. So 19 charging on 3d6, pick the 2 highest at +3, possibly +5 if you've got a lictor nearby. You just don't fail charges anymore if you want that. But I don't think that's going to go on a Flyrant. What do you think goes on a Flyrant?
Let's see here. I wonder if it's the Reaper of Obliterax.
Wow, Alex, it's like you read my mind. My gosh. What does the Reaper of Obliterax do, Alex?
It is a bone sword or monstrous bone sword. Each time an attack is made with this weapon, if that attack successfully wounds the target suffers 1 mortal wound in addition to any other damage. Each time an attack is made with this weapon is allocated to an enemy model. That model cannot use any rules to ignore the wound it loses. So all of those mortal wounds going through you don't get feel no pain against them. Yeah, it's wildly high damage output.
And we completely mitigate absolutely any kind of wound stopping. Sorry, Gaz. Sorry, Catan. Sorry, Baharath. Get off my table. Tyranids used to be an army that could one-shot things like that in an amusing way, you know, because we kind of play in every phase. Now we just do it. So that Tyrant that goes in has 5+ D3 attacks, hitting on 2s. Maybe you gave him... What did you give him? Do you think you give him rerolls?
I would probably do. I would probably just do Monstrous Bone Sword Lash Whip.
Oh yeah, sorry, because he has Lash Bone. He hits on 2s, rerolling once natively. He 1 CP full rerolls to wound at strength 11. And every wound, every single wound, so on average like 7 mortal wounds basically, in addition to 7 invulns that if you fail, you don't get feel no pains at a flat 3 damage.
Mm-hmm.
I see that we are bumming out our co-hosts over here. This book is has a fair amount of silliness. Did you guys have other questions you wanted to ask me or Alex? Instead of us just continuing to rampage through all this nonsense?
I mean, just really quick, other than obviously Leviathan seems super strong, what other high fleets are piquing your guys' interest, if any?
I do like Gorgon. The 4+ poison is just really good because it works at range as well. So it'll be pretty funny going to other monsters with strike 5 and less shooting and always winning on 4s. The stratagem that they have for the toxin sacks, giving you auto hits on or auto wounds on 5s, is obviously very strong. And there's another part about it that I really enjoyed as well with Gorgon. I'm just on my phone.
The spell where 6s to wound do a mortal in addition?
I think it's even better than that.
We have that. You have the re-rolling a wound from the adaptive. You have the spell for 3-inch aura at the fight phase of 2+ for a mortal, 6 for D3, and then you have the relic for +1 toughness and fight up a bracket. They're all great. I see that a lot. I'm honestly intrigued by some of the custom stuff. As many of y'all may know, I'm an absolute sucker for OBSEC. So saying, hey, all of my monsters are +1 to charge and objective secured. Like, I don't need transhuman. I'm all toughness 8. Like, I have very amusingly found that, like, the Zoanthrope thing seems really flashy because you're like, oh my gosh, army-wide 4-up invulns and all my monsters. But you can just take an army of T8 4-up invul. Like, you don't have to, like, use the Zoanthrope thing for that. And honestly, that's one of the ways that I think you might want to be trying Soup, is saying, hey, here's all my very fast-moving, very hard-hitting GSC, and here's all my T8 4-up invuln chonk. That's just going to take up space and do ludicrous amounts of damage.
What's the 4-up invuln from if you don't have the imperative?
So, Hive Tyrants have it, Maliceptors have it, and then 25 points you give it to 1 more unit. So that's like 5 or 6 T8 4-up invuln many wound monsters that you can just throw around that have OBSEC now, right? Maybe you put that 4-up invuln on a Toxicrene in a pod, or on a Haruspex, or on a Harpy. Maybe probably not a Harpy because you want it to hold objectives if it's going to be OBSEC. Like, there's a lot of play there. Or you can just run that with the Fex spam and say, I don't need a 4-up invuln. I'm enough wounds. I don't think so. I think there's a build in there with a bunch of T8 4-up invuln OBSEC monsters comboing with GSC that has a lot of play.
Well, hold on. You don't get to do the biomorphologies if you're not pure.
What do you mean?
I'm pretty sure the biomorphologies are if you're only pure Tyranids.
I don't think so. I'm looking at the page form right now. I don't see anything about that.
Oh, maybe I just got that stuck in my head. I thought there was 2 things that we lost. Never mind.
Okay. It's possible that would be a thing. My guess is that if that works, it's you don't get to swap, right? Like, it would prevent you from being... But I'm very happy to just be OBSEC +1 to charge all the time and not bother swapping if that's a thing. So that's going to be worth trying. So I think there's so much in custom, especially with the ability to swap out, that custom is absolutely worth exploring. Even though you are giving up a fair amount, like all the main ones are awesome. But we also didn't mention Kraken. Kraken is just very cool. It's unfortunate that you're never going to want it onto adaptive out of it because their stratagem, because their adaptive is just advanced D3 + 3 army wide. Not a stratagem. That's the second half of their High Fleet trait. Which, again, on an army where any one unit advances and charges basically automatically, is very nice. Or if you don't like that, they're the ones that oh wait. The Kraken strat isn't tied to Hormagaunts? Oh my gosh. So yeah, the Kraken strat is just auto advance 8.
Mm-hmm. Very fast.
It doesn't hand out advance and charge like the Hormagaunt one does, but yeah.
You also don't
advanced
suffer
D3
the
plus 3 or
penalty
sometimes 8.
for assault weapons with that. So you could
Totally.
have your warriors bombing around
Mhm.
15 and still get to shoot a full ballistic skill.
Yeah. And then I mean, you're probably gonna put onslaught on them anyway to do that, but it's it's a nice little little addition. Oh, beautiful. And they're also probably some of the best at the dogpiling charges because they still have synaptic lure to give everyone in your army reroll charges against a unit.
Yeah.
And also they have access to the 5-up regen, which is just another reason that there's no way Leviathan is sticking around. We'll see.
Right, yeah.
Everything seems to have stuff going on. Let's talk about some lists. Mm-hmm. No, go ahead.
Yeah. Also, Kraken has one of the best artifacts because they are -1 to be hit, can't be rerolled against.
Yep, surprise. My T8 3-up save 4-up invul monster is a Void Weaver now. Have fun.
Yeah, the Harlequin.
Exactly. But it also butchers things. Obviously, you're not butchering things quite as much in melee if that's the relic you're going with, but that's a lot of fun. That's definitely something to look into if Bodyguard goes away and you want your Shard guy in the back saying, hey, I'm T8 2-up 4-up with -1 to be hit, can't reroll. It's very nice. Okay. So let's talk about some lists, Alex, because I think this is such a deep book that we're going to be writing lists for a long time. But just as like some fun places to start that are probably not optimized and not incredible, but just ideas. What are you looking at? What's a list that you have in mind at the moment?
The one I've played 3 times now.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't change a thing any times. I highly recommend this to people. You know, the early lists come out, just continue to play the same thing a bit, get a feel for it. Sometimes you might think like, well, that wasn't very good, but you just misplayed it really poorly. It's Leviathan. It's a Neuro Hive Tyrant on foot. 2 packs of Warriors, like full packs. 2 packs of Horms, just 2 10s. Death Leaper, Maleceptor, Zoanthropes, Venoms, Parasite, Tyrant Guard, and then 2 packs of Ravs. Most of those are 5-mans. A couple of those are 3s. And then the actual like details is the Neuro has the direct guidance warlord trait, which is the +1 to hit. He has onslaught and catalyst because those are very reliable for him now. The Hive Tyrant has the heavy venom cannon, warlord trait perfectly adapted, which is the Leviathan reroll, hit, wound, save, charge, psychic power, damage once per turn. He also has the super venom cannon, and then I give him a second case of onslaught because onslaught is so good. And then I gave him Hive Nexus, so he can hand out the synaptic imperatives. The Maleceptor has Psychic Scream and Neuroparasite, because I want him to be pure damage. The Zoanthropes have Paroxysm, because I guess I wanted another spell, even though they're just going to be smiting all game. And then the Parasite has the Alien Cunning, which is the make him OBSEC and count as 5 models. And then he also has Preceptic Node, which I forgot in my game. Damn it. Okay. Anyway, Perceptic Node is anyone that lands within 18 inches of him, you are able to pick a unit within 6 inches of him and Auspex scan. And that
core character unit, yeah.
Core character, and that is not limited per turn. If you have 3 warrior units around him and your opponent deep strikes 3 units in, each warrior unit can shoot once into the 3 different units arriving. Which when you have 3 venom cannons, 6 death spitters, hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, that's a disgustingly good Auspex scan. And there's no limit on the range. It's 24-inch range.
Very cool.
Well, that's the range of death spitters.
Yeah. It's kind of like the way that the Eldar one used to work, but it's a relic, not a stratagem, and it's keyed to 18. It's not at all the same, but it's similar in the idea of you have a character who's handing this out to people. And it's a lot of fun. It doesn't cost any command points. It's just a relic. Cool. So that's a very balanced list. That seems like a great place to get started if you're not sure what to do with bugs right now. Not everyone has 18 warriors, but if you do, go for it.
Mhm.
Yeah, that seems like a good time. I, by contrast, went all the way down the psychic rabbit hole because I wanted to see what happens. And the list that I've been running there, that I have a couple games with, is it's a what is it? A patrol outrider? Is outrider elites? Is outrider fast attack? Vanguard is
Out-
elites.
Vanguard's
Vanguard
elite.
is
yeah,
elite. So
Outriders
patrol,
fast attack.
yeah, patrol Vanguard. With 2 tyrants, one of which is the Ashbone go out and kill stuff guy with the Reaper, one of which is the on foot standing back with Shard Gullet. Squad of 5 Tyrant Guard with talons to protect them. So those are my 3 to the last, or the 2 tyrants in the Tyrant Guard. My tyrants do end up getting extra juiced. Like my tyrant on foot gets toxin sacks just to push him up to 195, so that he's the same points as the Maleceptor with the 25-point upgrade for the CP and upper bracket. Neuro, again, with the tendrils to hand out twice. 3x3 zones, 2 Maleceptors, one of which has that upgrade. 20 Gargs, 2 squads of 10, that is. Parasite, again, with the OBSEC, squad of Venom Thropes, and squad of Biovores. And man, is this stuff fun. It's ludicrous output. It requires an amount of patience because you really want to go out and get stuff, but you can't. And it's fairly low model count, so it'll be easy. And I have a lot of painted zone Thropes, so I really love getting to put them on the table. What else are you thinking about that maybe isn't a list yet, but like conceptually is worth trying that maybe we haven't talked about yet?
I do want to eventually see if I can go maybe even like MSU style Hormagaunts, specifically Hydra or Gorgon, where you can really maximize the damage output out of each unit. Um, Again, some of those units are going to be hitting like 100% wound value just about, with re-rolling 5s to wound or to hit. It can give you automatic wounds. And you can do a lot of move blocking because they still have 6-inch pylon heroic or 6-inch pylon consolidate kind of stuff. I think it'll be one of the more technical lists to build, but you can still do this like Hormagaunts everywhere. They're super fast because they get the stratagem to automatically move 6. And then just backline that with like unshootable Hive Tyrants. And I think you could still fit the psychic package of Maleceptor in with all those Hormagaunts.
Yeah, absolutely. Hormagaunts are kind of the new Gene Stealers in that way. They're
Yeah.
the thing that goes 16 in charges, and they hit kind of comparably to what Gene Stealers used to, right before they got all of their power ups. So I'm curious to see how they end up shaking out with that, with the various buffs. I would love to see them be excellent because fast moving bugs are the best kind of bugs. Especially because especially with the fallback in charge, from the Hive Tyrant. So that'll be fun.
Yeah.
As I mentioned earlier, I'm kind of moving in 2 different other directions. One of which is genuine warrior spam. I want to try like 5x5, 1x9, so like 34 total on the board. Seems like a really good place to start. That's somehow like 980 points when you fully kit it out. And I want to see how that can play. A lot of people are and like I said, and then also like I said, there's a lot of T8 spam that's interesting, either as a mono or as a forces list. I think the forces I think is going to be my snowflake build that I will cling to, even though it's probably not as good as some other stuff. So we'll see how that ends up shaking out. There is definitely a part of me right now that is like, I have a lot of very large tournaments lined up for this season. What best in faction do I go for that doesn't step on Alex's toes as much as last time? And it seems like not a lot of people are going to be playing forces, so that might be fun. And also to catch the people off guard, because I think some of this other stuff may be a little bit more played. And then the alpha rush list, which is probably actually a beta rush because you want definitely pretty get in on it at the same time as everyone else. But here's 45 plus wounds of T8. Can you chew through it all at once when you're not allowed to fall back from any of it, so you can't shoot it?
Yeah.
Probably not. But I want to see what they can try, because that seems like a lot of fun. So yeah, those are a couple different directions that I think we'll be moving in.
That was with the Tyrannicides, right? Because they're drop pods now.
Yeah, exactly.
You briefly mentioned it earlier, but
yeah,
some people might not know that.
The Tyrannicides, they're drop pods now, so they can come in turn 1, 2, or 3. They also have fly, so they can leave on the turn after they arrive and come back later. Just need to mention everything that has fly because it all does that. There are 100 points for 15 wounds at T7 3 up. Is that right?
Oh, I actually didn't even look at the stats on the Tyrannicides.
Are they monsters?
Yeah, Oh yeah, they're
Yes,
monsters, all right.
monsters.
They're on a
You
100
could
mil base.
you could make him obsec with the
Yeah,
adaptation.
absolutely. I think that's hilarious of being like, hey, hope you didn't want to actually hold this objective because yeah, 15 wounds, T7, only a 4-up armor, so you can chew through him fairly quickly. But 15 wounds is just a lot of chonk. Still ballistic skill 5, and they still have the 5 death spitters, so they'll drop in. I don't think you want to pay 25 points to upgrade them to anything else, but just have them drop in and spew out 15 shots at 5-2-1. Just
What
as
else
an
can you equip
added
on them?
bonus.
I'm not even sure I have that in the one that I
They're-
got, the leak. Can you give them
They
venom
can,
cannons?
Yeah, they can have venom cannons or barbed stranglers just like warriors. Again, they take a full 5, and it all has to be the same one. And it is 5 points per barbed strangler, 10 points per venom cannon. I don't think you want to pay 50
Yeah,
points
no,
to
you
make a
don't want that.
BS5 model do that.
No.
I didn't mention my boy, the Sporocyst. They did him dirty. That is the thing that bums me out the most about the book. He's T7, 4-up save as well. Only 10 wounds, though. Like, oh, man. Similar output. And then he can every turn spawn a unit of
Spore mines.
spore mines of he does a unit of 6, or can shoot his gun. He doesn't have a gun version. He just spawns a unit of 6 or a mucilid every turn, which is okay. It's a little bit blurry on the leak here, but it looks like it's 6 models in 18 inches of him, which, like, if you can, he still infiltrates, right? He can go anywhere. So according to FOG, at least, that means that he gets around the fortifications have to be 3 inches away from terrain features rule. So if you can put him on, like, he's still a fortification, so I don't think he can hold objectives.
No.
Fortifications just can't, even if he'll be an obstacle fortification that can't hold an objective. I'm curious if that means that I count as having OBSEC on it if I put something else on it. Anyway, we're not going to think about it too hard because he's bad, but putting out 6 spore mines a turn is kind of funny while being pretty well obscured, and then just saying that objective, it's got 18 spore mines on it. Good luck. It's just not good, which is a shame. I don't think it's at the point where I'm going to try to, like, convert them back into Tyrannocytes. I think I just buy some Tyrannocytes because my Sporocysts will always have a very safe place in my heart. They're also, like, like everything in the game, there's a place where they'd be cheap enough that you'd want to take them. They're currently only 95 points, and I guess they spawn 60 points of spore mines a turn. So, like, what really can you ask for? But maybe there's a place for them in a threat saturation list that has an extra detachment available. That's just asking for a lot. Anyway, anything you wanted to ask, Lucas? Nope. Cool. Well, we got more questions, Nick?
I had a few quick questions if we're fine.
Yeah, for
with
sure.
it.
Go for
I
it.
mean, we're already over an hour and a half, so that's like 10 more minutes. I just had like some general questions. Like, how do you guys feel that Nid's played the new missions? I know you've tested them a few times. Like, do you think there's any that like they'll crush or any that you'll struggle on?
I think that the secondaries that have been opened up for Tyranids are ones that Tyranid players just aren't going to be used to. Like, I think we can play Stranglehold super hard now because we have the ability to just put really tough stuff into the middle of the board, which we didn't get to do before. I think they can play to the last pretty well. I think that they can do with the banners really well. There's a lot of things in the army that have that kind of like the Maliceptor, where it's got a wild amount of damage output, but a very close range. So if you go like, turn 1, I used like the Venom Thropes here, the Raveners here, the Warriors here, or even like Horms, and I raised 3 banners. And then if you want to come and take those away from me, you're going to eat like 25 mortal wounds. That's the kind of game that you're going to want to play, rather than forever it's just been like, I do Engage, I do Rod, I do Teleport Homer. Also, when you have that much amount of psychic stuff on there and you get a free psychic action for a turn, Psychic Interrogation definitely opens up. So I think they've got a lot of different options for playing secondaries.
Yeah. I really like Psychic Interrogation in this list more than in any other army because we have Murder Hive Tyrant who's going to be running in and doing stuff, and we seem to have more casts than we have spells most of the time. Mm-hmm. So having a unit that says, okay, cool, I'm going to run in 17 plus D6 inches, I'm going to mental interrogate, I'm going to charge something, I'm going to beat the crap out of something, I'm going to leave. That sounds fantastic to me. So I'm more intrigued by that than I had been in the past. Similarly for like, you can do something similar with Warp Ritual. Same idea. Jump into the middle, cast your spell, charge something, move on. obviously, it being tied to characters means it's really just the Tyrants doing that, unless you want to get real ballsy with your Neurothrop. So maybe not. I think we have some of the best R&D play in the game, in that there is no screening gargoyles that move 12 plus D6 and rod and leave. That's just not a thing that you do. So that's going to be a lot of fun. We didn't talk at all about the Tyranid secondaries. We have one that is basically it's kind of half R&D, half teleport homers. I think that it's interesting and will get play in a lot of times. I'm not exactly sure how it works though. I don't. Maybe you looked at this a little bit closer than I did, Alex, because it seems like you can do it within 6, but you actually have to be within 1 with someone.
Let's take a look at it again. I didn't give them too much of a. Honestly, there's so much to go through with the new book, and I'm like already playing games with it. That was one of those ones I'm like, that's knowledge I don't really need to do. I'll just play the game based on the secondaries that I know about.
Yeah, absolutely.
It
So
kinda
spore
feels-
nodes. Yeah, go ahead.
I would say it kind of feels like you could just like baseline strangle R&D warp ritual and then change those around depending on the mission or your opponent.
I'm planning to the last instead of warp ritual, but yeah, basically. I don't think taking 2 secondaries that cap at 12 is the best thing you can do, but like yeah.
Or not warp ritual, sorry, mental.
Mental
So
interrogation. Sure.
Instead of warp ritual. Yeah.
Totally. So that's very realistic. But yeah, score 4 victory points each time a unit from your army successfully completes an action. Seed spore nodes, 1 troops unit, so it's basically got to be the Gargs, or the warriors or whatnot, from your army can start to perform this action at the end of your movement phase from the second battle round onwards. So you can't do it turn 1. If they're within 6 inches of your opponent's DZ and not within 6 inches of any spore node objectives that you've placed in the past, it's completed at the end of your turn, and then you can bounce, of course. If this action is successfully completed, place 1 objective marker anywhere wholly within your opponent's DZ and within 1 inch of the unit that completed the action. This is a spore node, but doesn't count as an objective marker for any other reason. So it looks to me like I have to get 1 guy within 1 inch of my opponent's DZ and the whole unit within 6 of my opponent's DZ to do this, which is, again, fairly easy to do on some places. And again, it's 4 per, and you can do it 4 times. So you do it 3 times, you get the same as Rod. You can get the 4th time to get the max 15. If you've got 2 squads of gargoyles and you're playing something like a vital intelligence kind of map, or especially a sweep and clear style map, I think that's worth seriously looking at. Because especially on sweep and clear, because R&D on sweep and clear is always a pain. Trying to get that deep into your opponent's DZ. But, sometimes you'll just go first. You'll pregame move your Garg 6, and then you'll advance and send act with them. So, who knows?
Yeah.
Interestingly, I don't think you can... How does the advance and act interact with the Leviathan spell? I don't think that's going to interact the right way, right? Because it'll be too late. You won't have been able to have started the action.
Oh, Hive Nexus? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think that works.
And it's only until the start of your next turn. Yeah, so you can't use that for extra missional actions like R&D. It's not going to do anything. But on the go turn, still you'll get that. So that's interesting. And then the other 2 secondaries, one of them is the one that's in the GT pack now. The one where Synapse dudes kill things. I think it's probably still terrible, even with Murder Flyrant. It's just not enough. It's like 6 different hoops to jump through for 3 points a turn. No thanks. And then the third one we should talk about because it's intriguing. You want to read off the third one, Alex? The cranial feasting?
Yeah, for sure. I got away from the page. There we go. Each time an enemy character model or unit champion is destroyed, attack made by a Hive Tendril model from the army, roll 1d6. Adding 2 if the role of that Hive Tendril model has Feeder Tendrils keyword. Adding 2 if the destroyed has the character keyword. On a 6+, you get a command point out of it, which is neat. At the end of the battle, score 3 victory points if you gained 1 or more command points during the battle due to this objective. Score 1 victory point for each enemy character model, each enemy unit champion that is destroyed by a Hive Tendril model. Score 3 victory points if the enemy warlord destroyed a melee attack by a Hive Tendril model. There's a lot going on there.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of moving parts. Overall, it seems really useful into a very MSU heavy build or a very character heavy build. But you really, yeah, because what you're basically, you'll get the 3 from getting a CP once, cool, and maybe if you're lucky, you'll get the 3 for killing the enemy warlord. But then after that, you're basically just trying to rack up character and unit champion kills. So if you're playing someone who has like 10 or 12 squads that each have
Exarchs.
exarchs or sergeants or what have you, then I'm suddenly intrigued. But what's cool is that like even if I'm only getting 7 or 8 points out of this is really the most reliable way you can get extra command points as a Tyranids player, assuming Leviathan goes away. You either play Kraken for regen or you take this objective, which I don't think that we're crazy CP hungry. We don't have to be, at least. Needing a second detachment for our second Tyrant isn't lovely, but like there are no giant stratagems that you're going to be pulling all the time, right? There's no fight twice, there's no shoot twice, none of that is happening. So I think you can get by without it, but if you build an army that is pretty CP hungry, I would start thinking about this. It's going to need some further thought. We'll talk more about this at a later date, I'm sure. But it's interesting. But yeah, so overall, Nick, I would say that we play the mission very well.
Yeah, I'd agree with that just from what I've read and what I've heard. One smaller thing, I know it's a little early, but I know people like hearing about this. It sounds like the internal balance is fairly good. Just like hearing you guys talk, like you all have like 3 or 4 lists you're working on that are pretty different from each other. Like there's a core that seems to be very strong. How do you feel about like the external balance? Like what tier would you place it in based on your games so far? Or do you think it's too early to tell?
I played against a pretty meta Craft Worlds list. That was actually my first game playing Tyranids, and it was super scrappy, and I think I won by like 2 points, so that's probably a good sign. As far as overall, I still don't know what's going to happen with Tau. We're talking all about like, hey, look at all our T8 and 4+ invuln, and if at some point somebody just says, you know what, screw these Tyranid guys, long strike, go, and he just starts deleting monsters every turn, like, might get a lot harder.
Or
Um,
Volcan?
yeah, so it's going to come down to what some of the other top contenders are, but I would instantly put them like in the running with like Tau and Eldar.
Okay.
And I don't think that Tyranids are going to struggle even a tiny little bit into Custodes. That seems like the easiest matchup in the world. Even though Custodes is still really good, I think it's just a horrendous matchup.
Yeah. I think we kick Custodes out of S tier right now, is my guess. In the way that that Tau kicked Dark Eldar out of S tier, Custodes did. We're like they're still really stupid good, but the way that the game operates right now, they don't have flex. I don't know what they shift into that helps them in this. I agree that Longstrike and Borkan just have the potential to remove NIDs from the table very quickly, and that is definitely something to be scared of. So we'll see what happens with Tau. But I think that we fit pretty comfortably into we'll have great matchups into any of the it feels weird to call them A tier. I'm just going to call them pack at this point.
Yeah.
Into anyone in the pack, I think we're going to do very, very well. Into elves of various flavors and Tau, we'll see, but I think we're going to beat the crap out of Custodes, and I'm really looking forward to doing that because they have been an absolute pain for forces for too long. So we'll see. Okay. Real quick before we sign off, I did have a couple of Discord questions that I want to make sure we cover. If you want to ask us questions on future episodes and you can't make our live streams, make sure to be joining the Discord on Patreon. Every question that gets asked there, if I know if I have an answer to it, will be asked on stream. Sam asked, this is actually a great question that I'd be really curious to hear what you have to say about it, Alex. When you get a new codex, how do you break it down? What are some optimal ways that especially newer players can understand a brand new codex when, as we said, there's so much going on in this book that like you and I, who are definitely in like the 0.1% of people who have spent time with this book, still have no idea what's going on yet.
Yeah, I mean, other than going through the general understanding of like, are the data sheets of any value? After that, it's immediately going into how do we maximize the value? So I went right to warlord traits, relics, stratagems, and how do we extract the most out of that? So I'm looking for, I call them like complete packages, where like if you take these 3, you can just take those 3 units and just sub them into any list because they just work wholesale on their own. Stuff like Maliceptor Nerf, Thrope Zone, Thrope Combo. Those 3 guys can go together. That is just a complete package of like psychic output. And then yeah, you're looking for things that might be like on the cusp of being pretty good, and then you go like, okay, what happens if I can apply this stratagem to them? Okay, suddenly that like opens up a new ability for that to be used. So that's typically where I start, is looking
Yeah.
for like functioning little subsections that can just work at any time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Something I would add to that, especially for newer players, if possible, put it on the table as quickly as possible. Right? It's very easy to, if you don't play a lot of games, to be like, oh, this is really cool, and to theory craft through like 48 iterations before you even touch a table. And you probably miss something in there. We probably miss something in there when we're doing that. And getting the opportunity to see how it functions in person live, like there's a lot of things where you can build up these crazy combos in your head, but they're all relying on the same thing. Like there are 3 or 4 units in there that I was like, oh man, they hit on 2s rolling 1s. Only 1 unit per turn is doing that.
Yeah.
So if I suddenly build a list and I'm like, oh wait, that's a problem, or if all of my calculations about how wicked durable my army is on the 4-up invuln turn, oh snap, I played the game, I used it on the wrong turn, and my army fell apart. Like, get that experience fast, even if it's with a bad list. Both Alex and I said, the lists that we're playing right now are not perfect lists. They're very far from it. They're very rough ideas to get units that we want to test out on the table. And in my case, like, push into extremes, right? Try a list that has too much X and see how it feels, so you know how much of X you actually want, you know? I found that the 2nd and 3rd squad of Zoanthropes, probably too much Smite, but the 2nd Maliceptor, not at all. I loved having him. I would, like, if I just tried to start at a balanced list and play with 1 squad of each, I would not have guessed that 2nd Maliceptor was the thing I wanted. So try stuff like that. This is not specific to Tyranids though. Nick or Lucas, do you guys have any comments on how to address a new book? I know you guys seem to jump armies quite a lot these days, at least for practice.
Let's have Lucas take it away first.
I'm actually pretty bad at this. I'm not actually that good at like looking at data sheets, rules, and points and trying to gauge. Everything sounds ridiculous in my head, and I'm not really at a point where I can. I'm not actually that good at discerning what among those is actual value for its points and what isn't. So that's what I'll say. I'm actually very bad at that. What about you, Nick? Do you have any skills in that?
Yeah, I don't like break things down like math hammery. Like I know a lot of people do that. They're like, yeah, this unit kills this many of these bodies. I'm just like, I actually look a lot at like, how does this unit play on the board? Like how fast does it go? How does it interact with terrain? How does it interact with objectives or my opponent's army? Like what kind of stratagems do I have that let me go really fast or like prevent them from moving around or scoring points? So I look at a lot of that. Sometimes I'll draft lists that don't have a lot of killing power on accident. And then I'm like, all right, back to the drawing table. Biggest thing for me though is I like to like come up with a core for a list, kind of like what Alex was saying, and then start fiddling around with the jank points. Because like rewriting a list from scratch every time is not great. You need a core that you have good reps with to go back to.
Mhm.
Good stuff. All right. And then second question, we sort of answered that. All right. Oh, this is interesting. Billy Howman, love Billy, asks, broadly, how should I think of bugs going forward? Sort of on an x-axis horde, or y-axis as elite, or on a similar plane for shooty versus punchy. What do bugs do if you're going to be running into them? What are you expecting to have them do well?
I think at the start it's going to be more elite. Again, all the stuff that even going like to smaller units, it's all still been like 3 wound units. It's been warriors and raveners and stuff like that. And other than that, though, I think it's still going to be very balanced. I think there's going to be a decent amount of shooting, good amount of combat, good amount of psychic, most heavily on the combat still, but still a good amount of everything, and still pretty fast. They're still going to be moving out on the board quickly.
Yeah, our speed comes from different places now. We're no longer everything is fast all the time. We have like very small bursts of speed, using overrun, getting our 1 unit that's advancing and charging every turn. A lot of stuff being really effective out of deep strike. I think that it's very possible that as the Hivemind figures stuff out, and I mean that in the most general sense of the Hivemind, they may be a psychic army it's just so much output that I think a lot of people aren't going to be able to deal with. So we'll see how that goes, but definitely shooting and definitely combat in droves as well, and definitely durability. We're a chonk army now. We're no longer
which is really weird.
Yeah, we've been the last several years of bugs have been everything moves fast and dies, and suddenly everything moves reasonably fast but does not die. So we'll see how that ends up working out, because things are pretty aggressive in the points, and I think the wound count is going to stack up very quickly. And Alex asks, will we ever really know if Crusher or Leviathan is gone? I declare it right now, they're gone. Move on. If it's very possible that GW messes this up and doesn't make anything official about it, if you are a TO and GW doesn't comment one way or the other, rule that they're not allowed. It's better for everyone. It's better for the Bugs players. It's better for all of their opponents. Crusher is a cancer on this game. I want it gone, and I want it gone yesterday.
And with these rules, it's super not okay. Good God.
No, it's not.
Because one of the really, really big things with Crusher Stampede is like, oh, well, you don't get access to a lot of stuff. Well, all of the 3-wound models now are all amazing. You get to take Raveners and Venomthropes and Zoanthropes and all the units that were like bad before. You just get to sub into that army now. You don't even have to be that monster heavy. You can be like a 50-50 split, and all of those other units that you didn't have before are crazy good now.
Yeah. They also, some of the strats just stack in silly ways. Warlord trait for D3 extra attacks, Crusher stratagem for D3 extra attacks, and now Tyranid adrenal gland stratagem for D3 extra attacks. No Flyrant should have 3D3 extra attacks. That should not be a thing. And then breaking through for flat 6 mortals, plus Horn Chitin for D3 plus 3 mortals. Like, these things that do the same thing in the same way are not going to be allowed to coexist. It's just not going to happen. I refuse to believe it. Leviathan, the supplement, might stick around. I think that would be bad for the game, but like, I could see it happening. But Crusher, move on. Stop writing Crusher lists. You're wasting your time.
I have one last fun question. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, this one's not related to the game, really. But it is related to Tyranids.
Mm-hmm.
If you were absorbed into the Hivemind and reborn as a Tyranid model, or creature, which one would you want to come back as?
I mean, up until very recently, my favorite was always, like, my basic favorite model is just like the warrior. I like that they were on the cover. I think they're just like iconic for what Tyranids were. After now, Death Leaper. Definitely want to be Death Leaper. He's the coolest.
All right. What about you, Tyler?
Absolutely. I think I would want to be a Trigon Prime. I think that the snake ability and infinite in attacks, jumping in, screaming at people, making automatic charges, cutting things into bits, auto wounding, and then disappearing again, like that's my vibe. That or the Parasite. I love the Parasite. I'm really excited for that model. Can you believe that we got a new model, Alex? It's only been 8 years.
Yeah, and they only swapped out for taking one away.
I know, right? Crazy. We did increase by a data sheet though with the winged Hive Tyrant, so we're still net positive on data sheets.
Yeah.
But oh man.
Lucas, you want to weigh on this? Which creature would you want to come back as?
Spore Mine. Next question.
All right.
So you can immediately die.
You can kill three Harlequin troops as quickly
So I
as
can
possible.
blow myself up. Mortal wounds, baby.
And my own pain.
Oh man. We got a fun question from the chat here. What are the names of the lists going to be? Because every list is some kind of city now.
Oh gosh.
Well, there's going to be a list out there called Spore City, and I'm going to play it, and it's going to be awesome. It's not going to be good, but I'm going to try it. Double Harpy, triple Biovore, and a Spore Assist. I'm going to do it. Don't think I won't. But what do you think, Alex? Is there a city list in here somewhere?
No, like Warrior City.
Warrior City, yeah.
Somebody's gonna spam like 40 warriors or something.
Yeah, I'm gonna try it for sure. It's gonna be dumb. It seems like fun. So we'll see how that all shakes out. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Macdougall, for joining us today on our episode of TNG. That is all that we've got for today. we will be back next week. Maybe not. If we are, it'll be a fully in-person episode because we're all going to be at Colin's house for this RTT. Going to be bringing y'all some fantastic bat rep content. I am bringing new NIDs. I don't know what flavor yet, but some flavor of new NIDs will be at the event.
Uh-oh.
Should be a good time. Nick is going to be bringing Necrons, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, unless they let me play with my unpainted Harlequins, which I doubt, so.
Cool. Nick is also, I think we probably want the representation. Nick will be bringing Necrons. Lucas will be bringing Orcs. You can see what all of this shenanigans we've been talking about does on the tabletop. It's going to be great. And then we've all got GTs in 3 weeks. So we'll definitely be back in 2 weeks on the 2nd to talk about something or other. And then on the 9th, we will have them at a GT, me at a major. We're going to have so much tournament coverage coming up fast. To get all of this information, make sure that you're liking, commenting, and subscribing on this video here. Leave us a review on whatever podcast app you may be listening on. And if you'd like to continue the conversation and hear about what the newest bugs stuff is coming out of myself, Alex Macdougall, John Lennon, Colin Sherman, and countless other players of every faction, make sure to join us on Patreon. It's only $10 a month for access to the best Discord in the history of 40K. It'll be a great time. One last thing, or other thing, consider supporting us on YouTube by becoming a YouTube member. It's also $10 a month. It's a totally separate thing. That'll get you access to the second half of Chasing the Narrative. It'll get you access to a whole slew of battle reports. Round 1 is going to be free on YouTube for this RTT we're doing, but the semifinals and the finals will both be for members only. So if you want to get in on that, you might want to join the membership. And you'll also get the Fight Club After Party Part 2 of Chasing the Narrative and so much more. With that all being said, thank you very much for joining us. I've been Tyler.
I've been Nick.
And I'm Lucas.
I'm me.
And we'll see y'all next time. Thanks for joining us. Take care.
Bye, me.